Welcome to H.Y.S.T. I'm Bradley Hackworth, joined by Jonathan Ems, otherwise known as Doc. Today is episode 7, and we are covering Tombstone, and there's something about Mary. I was so happy this week. These two movies, beyond good.
Classic 90s cinema. These were the movies that, in the years they came out, they were the ones that everyone was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Especially their
reason.
Yeah, especially There's Something About Mary. Like, there were the jokes from There's Something About Mary were recreated and homaged in like every TV show for like a good 2 or 3 years after the movie came out.
Yep. Very.
In fact, I think still to this day, I think there was a There's Something About Mary joke in an episode of Big Mouth just recently. So probably still being homaged.
I watched a couple episodes of Big Mouth, but I didn't finish it out because it was one of those things. I was watching it with somebody, and then...
Okay, I gotcha.
Things
Yep.
happen.
That's a tough one.
Gotta give it. Was there anything that you wanted to key in and pick up? Because, I mean, I know you love Willie's Wonderland, so was there anything else you had to say?
But no, I have nothing further to say about our previous flicks.
All right, so get into it.
All right, let's get into it. Yep.
Let's get into it. Our first movie is Tombstone, written and directed by Kevin Jarre, also directed by George P. Cosmatos, starring Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer, and Sam Elliott, with Bill Paxton, Powers Boothe, Michael Biehn, Charlton Heston, Jason Priestley, John Tenney, Stephen Lang, Thomas Hayden Church, Billy Bob Thornton, Dana Delany, Terry O'Quinn, John Corbett, Michael Rooker, Paula Malcomson, and Billy Zane. Dude.
Yes, Billy Zane with a full head of hair.
Pretty much playing the same character he played in Charmed.
Right.
Just awesome. So much, like the joy that Billy Zane brings to the screen every single time. The dude's magical. All right, so that was the cast.
Oh, and don't forget, they were narrated by Robert Mitchum.
I completely missed that. Good call. I did miss that. Now, casting was Rita Fernandez, Holly Heyer, and Janice Meyer out of Arizona, and I gotta say, they absolutely crushed it. Mm-hmm. They did a perfect job. I mean, just putting Billy Bob Thornton in such a small role, but such a pivotal thing.
Billy Bob Thornton was still pretty early on then. I think that he didn't really become a household name until Sling Blade, and I think Sling Blade came out like later the same year, and so
really?
or earlier. I think, I'm not sure. But I think that was kind of one of those things where it was like, oh, right, Billy Bob Thornton was in this too kind of moments, around that same area.
Yeah, but I mean, a small role, but still one that carried a lot of weight, and he absolutely crushed it. He did a phenomenal job. It was such a small role, but I understood everything. I mean, I'm going to get to that scene because we open... The opening exposition in the old film style, narrated by
Robert Mitchum. Yep.
And I really appreciated the exposition laid out like that. However,
it was funny too because they're
accurate.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a fictionalized version. That's the interesting thing about
barely though.
And they're kind of like setting it up front because those like black and white sepia tone like stuff they're showing, those are from like some of the first Western movies. That wasn't newsreel footage. That was like early days, of the silent film era, Western gunfight footage is what that was. So they're kind of saying right up front, like, look, this is yes, technically about real historical figures, but this is a Western movie. We're gonna take some liberties here. Like for instance, we're gonna do Matty Earp dirty. For starters.
But also accurately. I mean, is it really dirty if you're telling the truth?
I mean, sure, but I mean, I can go back and forth. We can get to that later on, but yeah,
Okay,
I
fair,
get that it was
fair.
technically accurate, but at the same time, I'm feeling like they sacrificed some of her actual humanity just to play up the budding romance later on. Like
Well,
they
you
wanted to make
probably would
sure.
have seen a lot more of that back when Wyatt Earp was still a lawman before he gave that up. Like when him and her actually had their start and everything like that. But
Mhm.
at this point, she's a heroin addict,
Yeah,
and
but that's the thing is like they needed the audience to be okay with the fact that Wyatt is all but cheating on her, and so they need to dehumanize her and only show her worst side. I feel like they done her dirty, but
I can see that.
yeah,
All right, but like you said, we are gonna jump in and we will get there.
okay,
The film opens on when the actual story begins. We open on the cowboy gang introducing Powers Boothe as Curly Bill,
yeah.
raiding a wedding for revenge on killing two of the cowboys.
Again, it's
And
Mexican police. Yeah,
yes, and also like this was the first introduction to showing Michael Biehn Johnny's intelligence, where you got a dude who kind of sounds like he has a Mexican accent, like so he should speak Spanish or something like that, or you'd think he would. But and then Michael Bihn's like, dude, your Spanish is horrible, man. Like,
right.
and like actually tells him what he said. I really enjoyed that. But what I really enjoyed about the actual translation about the man comes riding on a horse, he's referencing death. Basically, at the wedding, they're referencing Wyatt Earp is showing up.
Right, exactly.
Like
Foreshadowing.
death is
Yep.
on his way.
Which they lead right into because as soon as Johnny Ringo is done saying, his name is Death, cut to Wyatt Earp getting off the train.
Oh, it was very on the nose. Like
Yeah.
it was very clear who they were talking about. However, I did like that they did it.
Oh yeah, no,
I
it was
just
it was smooth.
also seeing Michael Rooker being a good guy.
Michael, like we just
Loved
got
it.
done 2 movies ago talking about how if you need an asshole, get Michael Rooker, and then all of a sudden here he shows up playing not an asshole for once and doing well.
Yeah, very believable. I really enjoyed him as that because I couldn't quite remember because it's been a few years when they were doing the raid scene and everything like that, and everybody starts laughing when the Reverend gets popped and Michael Rooker doesn't. I was like, well, Mr. Rooker,
Yeah.
you're a good guy in this, and I completely forgot that he was one of them.
Yep.
And then yeah, like right where you said,
Well,
like,
and it was
we get the
interesting. And it was
introduction.
interesting scene too. It was a very good introduction into Johnny Ringo's position here because the way they start laughing, it's nervous laughter. Like like for as much as these guys are villains, Johnny shot a priest. Like that was not cool. And Curly Bill basically knew that going, hey man, that's not cool to Johnny Ringo would just cause more trouble. So
Just
he
laughed it off.
initiates laughing it off and everybody else follows along. Like that it was very much it was very much Curly Bill going, okay, we're going to have to make light of this or he's going to kill more people. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then so to endear Wyatt Earp to the audience that isn't into westerns, you got the guy whipping the horse, and then Wyatt Earp shows up, takes the whip from him, and whips him like across the face or something. Like, hurts, don't it? Like,
Right.
yeah, that was the scene. I don't think Wyatt Earp actually did that in real life. I'm pretty sure
No.
he was whipping horses just like everybody was back at that time.
Sure. Yeah.
That was a scene to make him more empathetic to.
It's the white hat without actually giving him a white hat.
There you go.
Yep.
This is a political movie, and I wasn't ready for it, and I don't even know how to avoid talking about the politics in this, and it's gonna be a little bit of a journey. So, just getting right into it then.
This made me this made me laugh throughout the whole movie, even though it popped up once. The nonpartisan anti-Chinese league, like
that was the only mention.
didn't catch it the first dozen times I watched this movie back in the 90s. I caught it this time, and I'm like, oh my God, they are just very gently dropping hits. By the way, this guy's a dick.
And the local, like the U.S. Marshal comes to, hears Wyatt Earp is coming to town. He's like, hey, I'm the U.S. Marshal. And immediately he knows. And he's like, I'm not interested. I'm not
Yep.
here for the job. That life is behind. I'm changing. Came here to get rich. Get
Right.
out of my way. And just perfect. Then let's see. I really enjoyed this because this was a very real moment that happens when you get like a lot of people together. Definitely before cell phones. You get Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Lisa Collins, Paula Malcomson, Dana Wheeler Nicholson. The entire Earp clan is together, and they stop in front of that window to just look and admire themselves and to just see the family together. And I thought that was a very warm moment, and I really enjoyed that they put that in there. Now we start showing signs of Madeline and her opium addiction or laudanum addiction or heroin.
Right.
What are we, like, what is laudanum?
Laudanum is, to my knowledge, it was like an early days opiate,
Heroin,
like
right?
kind of more like closer to morphine, but like before morphine was morphine, you know.
Okay.
To my knowledge, I'm not 100% sure on that exactly, but yeah, it's like it's in there.
Okay. But where you say they did Madeline really dirty in this,
Right.
it's true. They probably did. But this, like, it was one of her opening dialogues. One of the other sisters is offering her, so did you need some laudanum? And she's like, yes. And she's like, be careful with that or whatever. She's like, oh, I just get headaches. And I was sitting there just going, that's called withdrawal syndrome.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like, lady, you're a drug addict. And that, okay, I didn't think about this in any way at all, but you are right. It is kind of sad that the wife of Wyatt Earp was not the romantic focus of this movie.
Right.
But if you would have told the story before this story, then yes. And also him and what was her name? Josephine. Wyatt Earp and Josephine wound up being together for like 60 years or something like that.
Okay.
So that love story, like it.
Technically, that's fair.
You had the drug addict who like left, and then she died shortly leaving after Tombstone. Like he didn't leave her; she died.
Right.
So his character's still a little bit intact. However, I really doubt that Wyatt Earp wasn't hooking up with Josephine before his wife died.
Probably not. Yeah.
It's definitely blasphemous to the legend of the character, or not the character, the legend. This is a true person. So a little blasphemous, but also, I mean, come on, man, he was a human.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of one of those, like, I don't know. That's the Hollywood thing. I mean, Hollywood's got its thing. It's got to have the romance angle, and.
But this was true though. Like,
yeah,
Josephine and Wyatt Earp. That did happen.
Yeah.
So that isn't just Hollywood. But I guess I probably could have appreciated a little bit more for Maddie. But that would have changed. I was saying this before or while you were rebooting or whatever. A lot of this movie wound up on the cutting room floor.
Oh, okay.
And didn't even get filmed, because the original director, what they shot first were Charlton Heston scenes. And he wound up over budget and behind schedule really bad, really fast. And Kurt Russell stepped up to be the secret director of this film. And he sacrificed pages of his own dialogue. He sacrificed a lot of sleep, everything like that, just to kick in and make sure that this movie actually got finished. So the star of the movie cut a bunch of his own dialogue to make it work. Kurt Russell, damn. But one of the other really beautiful things about that little story, Kurt Russell promised George that he would not say anything about directing or anything until after he was dead. Then the director died. Kurt Russell still waited 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
Kurt Russell, man.
Okay.
I got to give it to the guy.
Well, I mean, this obviously was a deep labor of love for Russell. That comes true in the entire movie. You can tell.
Well, one of the cowboys was Wyatt Earp III. He was actually Wyatt Earp's descendant.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Like, and
Well,
he was there to keep like some factual stuff, everything like that. And he says, like Wyatt Earp the third says that Kurt Russell this is the definitive version of Wyatt Earp. Nobody is ever going to do it better. This is Tombstone.
Okay.
And have they tried to remake this since?
No, of course not.
Okay, see, there you go. 30 years of Hollywood restraint. that is not a thing.
Well, I mean, I would call into question whether or not anyone's. I mean, there have been a few, mind you, a few key here, like Unforgiven and a few others.
Hateful Eight, Django
Hateful,
Unchained.
yeah. But generally speaking, the Western genre is not as prolific as it used to be, and I think Tombstone had something to do with it. I think to a certain degree. A lot of people look at
we're done.
Right, yeah. Tombstone was the end. They're like, what are we going to do after this? You know,
we made the perfect Western. I think we're good for now. Let's move on. Let's try to do superhero movies from now on.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Which is pretty much where we've landed. And Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday is one of the greatest roles, the greatest performances of.
I had forgotten how quotable he is in this movie. Like I remember back when this movie was fresh, it was like me and my friends for a good decade afterwards were just constantly repeating Doc Holliday lines to each other. You know, I'll be your Huckleberry, ain't you a daisy? You know, shit like that. Like, and not just the lines themselves, but the way Kilmer delivers them.
You went right into it. Into it. That's the big debate on whether on what he says and what the line is. And I'm gonna get to that. But what you were saying, because I have right here the intro to Holiday at the poker game, and the dialect that Val Kilmer chose. I'm sorry. Well, isn't that a daisy? Like how there was like a. His accent felt romantic. Like everything that he said felt romantic. Like I mean, I don't want to. You can't say Val Kilmer has not gotten enough praise, but you can say Val Kilmer has not gotten enough work.
True. Yes.
Because everybody praises Val Kilmer for everything that he does. He just doesn't do enough.
Right, yeah. But everything he has done has been in some way iconic. You've got Doc Holliday, you've got Mad Mardigan, you've got like what else? The Saint, yeah. Not his best movie, but some of his best work right up there.
It's been a long time since I've watched The Saint. I honestly can't remember it.
What was that movie
Bang,
where
Bang.
Kiss Kiss? I was trying to remember. What was that movie where he played the detective? Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Fucking A, he was amazing in that one.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Oh God, we got to cover Kiss Kiss Bang Bang at some point.
Yeah,
it was too good.
Yeah. No, that movie was, yeah. Second, I second that.
Yes. So the intro to Holiday at the poker game, and the first time that he comes up with the line, isn't that a daisy? And then we get the introduction to Big Nose Kate. Now, something that I looked up for the historical note for this, when Doc Holliday arrived in Tombstone, he was carrying around $40,000 cash. Now, at that time, adjusted for inflation, that's just north of $1 million in cash.
Damn, dude.
Doc Holliday was a badass.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
No wonder he was so chill. He had literally nothing to worry about.
And at the same time, he was so chill while walking around with like $1 million, and he's like, and still nobody's like, oh, wait, that guy's got $1 million.
No one.
Oh, it's Doc Holliday. Yeah. No. Like, when I first got to Colorado, it took about a year before I made it down to the Pioneer Cemetery that Doc Holliday is buried in. And I wanted to pay respects to, I mean, because honestly,
sure.
Just another thing that just makes Doc Holliday's legend even better. You can't. You can go to the cemetery that he's buried in, but it's a Pioneer Cemetery, and the only thing that says, somewhere in this cemetery lies Doc Holliday. So it's just one of those.
Right, yeah.
And that's just...
it is my understanding I'd have to. I should have fact checked this before I went on the air, but it's my understanding that Virgil Earp is buried at the Pioneer Cemetery in Portland.
I. That would be cool to look. Grab your phone.
We're on the air. You want me on my phone when we're on the air?
Well, you could just jump into that fact while I'm bringing up the next point.
Okay. All right.
All right. The arrival into Tombstone and showcasing the town and intro to John Tenney as Biehn. That was his name, right?
I think so, yeah.
Was it like sheriff? Okay. Mayor, governor, mayor, or something like that. And yeah, what a slime. And the line that you were talking about, like the anti-Chinese league or something like that.
Right,
what
yeah.
Was it called?
The nonpartisan anti-Chinese league, yes.
Yeah, right up in front.
Okay, yeah. So, confirmed, Virgil Earp is buried at Riverview Cemetery in Portland because apparently, at the time of his death, his daughter was living in Portland at the time, and so she decided to have him buried near her. Even though he was living in California, I think, at the time, she brought his body up to Portland to be buried where she was.
Oh, God. I'm going to have a rough time talking about Virgil, dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's... Ouch. This is, yeah. All right. So here's the thing about showing the Cowboys and all this. One, the red sash thing, made up.
Right.
That's made up. That's Hollywood just to make it so the bad guys are distinguishable from the good guys.
Sure.
Like, the red sash thing was not a thing. Because if you put 2 seconds of thought into it, why would you mark yourself as a criminal?
Right.
Like, that's just, that's, no.
That's 80s New York gangs stuff translated into, yeah.
Pretty much. I like when Wyatt Earp goes into the bar, the Oriental, and goes up to the bartender and he's like, "Oh, it's pretty dead in here for this time of day." And the owner is like, "Oh, who are you?" He's like, "I'm Wyatt Earp." Yeah, right.
Right.
And then he doesn't correct him. He's like, "No, I am." He's like, "Nothing." He's like, "Yeah, right." And then Wyatt Earp just, "Oh, well, excuse me, I'm gonna go be Wyatt Earp."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then he goes over to Billy Bob Thornton, and you have that scene, a young-ish Billy Bob Thornton. Acting opposite of Kurt Russell, and oh my God, that scene.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like the nervousness in Billy Bob Thornton, the transfer to fear, and just, and I wrote this line down because it was, go ahead, skin that smoke wagon and see what happens. Like, that line, oh my God, I loved that so much, man.
Mm-hmm.
That was so good. I wrote a line after that. I was like, that's a perfect job interview. Nailed it.
So I'll stay. And he says to him right afterwards, too. He's like, 25% of the house takes. He's basically like, so I'll start on Monday, right?
Yep. Just Wyatt Earp showing up and just doing his thing. And then Doc.
Number one rule: assume you've already got the job. Walk into the interview assuming you've already got the job. That's what Wyatt Earp just did.
He definitely nailed that one.
Yeah.
Damn it! What was Billy Bob Thornton's character's name?
I do not remember.
I missed it, but that's what Val Kilmer shouts out as Doc Holliday as he's coming out. He shouts his name. And he asked him, like, where are you going with that shotgun?
Right, yeah.
Then that whole
Something
scene,
Walker? Right? Donnie Walker?
I should have wrote it down. But it's the way that Val Kilmer, like, shouts it out when he has that. That is, like, the only time that he actually shouts in the entire movie where he's not perfectly cool or anything like that is when somebody with a shotgun is walking up on his boy.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, that is perfectly Doc Holliday's character summed up in just one single action, which feeds into a line later in the movie that I'm going to jump into. Just seeing the juxtaposition between Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. Because Doc Holliday, he wasn't a criminal, he was a gambling man. And the thing was, you were allowed to kill somebody for calling you a cheater when you were gambling. Like, that was legal. So Doc Holliday built up a body count, but he did it in a very legal sense.
Yeah. Man, no wonder. Jesus Christ, it's like we glamorize the Wild West, but when you actually spell it out like that, you're like, Jesus Christ, seriously?
It's gonna get a little deeper. Like I said, I didn't mean to get political, but when you're talking about a movie that, well, let me just drop a little hint to our few viewers. This was the first gun control attempt in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's how it goes. like all the people in the U.S. that say, like, you take my guns, you're gonna see what happens. Only criminals have guns and stuff like that. In this story, they tried gun control. They took guns from then you had no. I'm gonna wait until I get to the OK Corral, because that is a pretty hefty thing that needs a little bit of focus.
Yep.
And then after Billy Bob Thornton gets humiliated, and he's like, "What? White Earth?" And then he just he's like, "And you can leave that shotgun." He puts it
right.
down,
Well, what I love is how they almost immediately ignored him. They basically, Doc hollered out the guy's name, brought attention to him that this guy's coming at you with a shotgun. And the guy stops dead in his tracks, uh-oh, now, I'm not going to be able to sneak up on him and catch him by surprise. So let's see what happens. Their reaction is to almost immediately.
He goes "Doc, I didn't know you were back in town."
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, these two scared the shit out of everybody that saw them, and I just I love.
And he just stands there. And the funny thing is that it's dismissive the way Doc says it. He's like, "Oh, I forgot you were there. You may go now." He genuinely actually was waiting for permission to leave, because that's how fucking scared he was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I loved that. Oh, then we get our intro into Creek Johnson and Texas Jack. When they come out of the gambling house and they kill the guy, and the sheriff comes up and they're like, "Hey, it was fair. He called us a cheater. We take it it was legal." And then the sheriff takes him. He's like, "Hey, take it before the judge, and then you can get him back." Honestly, I thought that was a pretty fair way to go about the system.
Sure, yeah.
Especially in those days, that seemed fair.
I did like the lead up to that, though, of how it was literally the mayor sitting there, or not the mayor, the county sheriff sitting there going we're gonna be as fancy as San Francisco, and then immediately a gunfight breaks out right there.
He was talking about the way that people are dressed and the tone of the town and all that, and immediately a
gunfight breaks out, and Doc Holliday says "Oh, very cosmopolitan," know.
Quotable.
Yep.
Every
line.
Yes. Then we get to no. First we see Doc Holliday. Wyatt Earp.
Mm-hmm.
And making eye contact, or seeing Josephine for the first time. That's how you do a double take. Kurt Russell's double take as Wyatt Earp to Dana Delany as Josephine.
Mm-hmm.
How subtle that was. I almost even missed that it was a double take.
I did, actually. I did miss it.
Yeah, because it's Kurt Russell's eyes. They're this open. And he's it's so subtle. But it's one of those things that's a character that knows he's not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be making those eyes at that person. He has his wife. He has his honor. And I felt the struggle that he was having. And then you go to the theater. No.
Which I would like to point out.
Every theater nerd loved this scene.
Oh, of course, yes. But I do want to point out, because like you said, he's conflicted. He's love at first sight on Josephine. Mm-hmm. But also instantly layered on with guilt of, oh, fuck, I'm a married man, The audience should feel that too. But we don't, because so far we've seen 2 scenes with Maddie. We already don't like her.
And
so instead of
more Josephine's story than Maddie's story, and the movie isn't about the drama of the marriage. So I do appreciate that they didn't make it about that.
That is fair, but I mean, again, I'd say if you, I feel like they could have,
Could have given her a little bit more, but
yeah, they didn't. They didn't
Russell
have to
Crowe- or,
completely
not Russell
demonize
Crowe.
her.
Yeah, and maybe
Russell.
something. I know, Kurt Russell. Maybe that's something that got lost in the pages when Kurt Russell stepped up because the director was behind schedule and stuff like that.
That's
'Cause
probably
like you
true.
said, a lot of his dialogue.
And
got
it is
lost.
kind of amazing to think that how much of this movie was cut and still came in at like 2+ hours.
It's so good. Good though, man. Watching this twice this week because I didn't need to watch it twice this week, but when I was when I was gonna rent it on Amazon, it was actually cheaper to buy than to rent. So I was like, huh,
Interesting.
So I just bought it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I just want to listen to Doc Holliday's lines a few more times, man. Like,
Yeah.
it was too good. But that, like, okay, so the actors and the cowboys and everybody else all going to the theater and watching the performance. First seeing the juggler come up there and then they shoot him. Or the thing that he's juggling. Then we get
the pins,
Billy
yeah.
Zane coming out and doing the speech for St. Crispin's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And they come out, they shoot, and it lands on his shoulder, and I just love that, and right into the speech.
The show must go on.
And I was like, damn you, Billy Zane, why are you so perfect? And man, still so good. So good. And when I say like every theater nerd loved this scene, watching the amber bottle in front of the light to show the effect of that, watching. So these days, and for a long time, you want to be in theater, you catch gay jokes, you catch all this stuff, sissy, like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at this and you watch this and you see these rough and tough, murderous, like the rough and just the baddest of the bad.
They don't throw tomatoes. They shoot at you.
They shut. No, but the thing was, they saw the performance. And it reached them, and it shut them the hell up, and they got into it, and that is really the power, because a good performance on stage, you're going to reach the cheerleader, you're going to reach the veteran, you're going to reach the garbage man, and you're going to reach the office worker.
Yep.
That is the power of stage, and to have that moment where all of them came together and actually were enveloped into that, I loved that inclusion into this movie, and I truly believe that is actually real, because when I was going through and I was researching what was historically accurate to this and what wasn't, there was not much that wasn't.
Okay. Yeah.
Like this, like that actually did happen. They went to the theater. They saw this. Like these things, they all happened. I mean, and when you have that many books and firsthand accounts and like, I met the legend Wyatt Earp. Like everybody wrote in their journals about it, so this stuff was pretty easy to actually fact check. Okay,
I guess I'm a little surprised because that's the thing about westerns is that the American Western genre essentially is an adaptation of Japanese samurai movies. That's kind of how they started. We took these very popular samurai movies from Japan and adapted them into Americanized versions, the Wild West. Actual 100% American stories in a Western are remarkably rare. I can think of like 3 off the top of my head, Tombstone being one of them. But that's the thing is like Tombstone is end-all be-all the Western story. So the fact that it is that historically accurate while still fitting all the Western genre, kind of surprising, kind of shocking.
Well, honestly, the biggest historical inaccuracy for this movie in almost all Westerns, most cowboys were black or Mexican.
Right.
Like that, like these, like white people, we've romanticized it and been like, yeah, like we were one of those. No, we weren't. No, we weren't.
Most white people were.
These were the people that were like. A lot of cowboys were slaves that ran the fuck away and went to
the territories where there is no law.
Yeah, like that's where a lot of this stuff came from. It wasn't white dudes. The U.S. Marshals and stuff like that. Yeah, they were white.
Yep.
So
Mr. Sheriff, freaking nonpartisan anti-Chinese league. Like that's who the white folks were.
And yeah, which also really feeds into, we're going to get to the OK Corral. Morgan Earp, the spiritual Bible thumping little brother with the weakest mustache in the family. Bill Paxton, you played that character to absolute perfection, and if you were still alive, my God,
How many times? This is what, the third time we've lamented the loss of Bill Paxton on this show? I mean, come on.
Wow. I think that might actually be true.
Yeah, that's how iconic this dude was, you know?
Something about Bill Paxton's death, if we're talking about it this much. Did you know that when he died, there was a message spread out over 3 states that were done by storm chasers on like radar, sending their messages out, and they wrote his initials BP across 3 states in honor for his role in Twisters.
I did not know that. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
The influence that he had on a lot of people, he probably started a lot of people's passion for storm chasing just by being in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and let's be honest too. He also is the quoter of probably the single most famous line in all of movie history. The most requoted, "Never will die." Game over, man. Game over. Yeah, that's Bill Paxton. If you've ever quoted "Game over, man. Game over," you're quoting Bill Paxton, and that will probably outlive us all.
You realize that Lee Evans quoted Bill Paxton with that quote in "There's Something About Mary."
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that brings in our second movie for the week.
Yeah.
Okay, but I did like because that's something that you really kind of get when you are the youngest sibling, stuff like that. Like you got your older siblings, the ones who know themselves, they're lockstep and all that, and you kind of have 2 options. You get to follow in their footsteps and be like them, or you get to find your own path. Now, when you have Wyatt and you have Virgil being the badasses and the kings of men that they are,
right?
What's left?
That's a tough one, yeah.
Yeah. So him trying to be his own man and just jumping into like all these other things, very relatable to a current climate, and maybe that was accurate to back then. No, that was part of the accuracy that he was into spiritualism. That because that's what they called it back then. Is that still what they call it? I actually don't know.
Hold on.
Are you hearing that buzzing too?
No, my computer is giving me error messages, and I'm trying to make them go away, but they're not. So I may be losing my feed again. I don't know. I'm dealing with it as best I can.
It didn't take you too long to get back in, so I mean we can. Yeah. We'll work with it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it and cross my fingers.
Okay, Dana Delany as Josephine revealing herself, where he's like, well, who was playing the devil? And all of a sudden, Josephine.
Yep.
The devil woman. She comes in, and Kurt Russell has phenomenal deer in headlights look.
And again, it might have been intentional because, like you said, they had to cut a lot out. I did this time around really wish they had delved more into the story of Faust, because it really, like, when you take that into account, you know how because that's what she was performing. She was playing the devil in the story of Faust. I thought you were
talking about the character. I thought you were talking about a character. I'm sorry.
No. Okay. She's playing the devil in the story of Faust. And I wish they had gone more into what happens in Faust, because that further colors their relationship in the beginning even further.
But that is a scene for you. That's the thing. Like
jokes that only theater nerds will get.
And that's the inclusion. Those are the inclusions. You don't need, like, because I'm glad that I didn't realize that. I'm glad that I didn't notice that, because it still worked for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Like they trusted the audience for the audience members who would key in on that to get the additional enjoyment of it. But if you didn't know that, it didn't matter, because you still got the message, you got the understanding, and definitely to Maddie, Josephine is the devil.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You got to give it that. Then he Russell says that he has to go to work, and then Maddie's like, well, why don't you stay with me? Will you stay with me? And then he's like, well, I gotta go to work. And you do see that Maddie sees Russell as having, you know, a little bit too much attention towards Josephine. So I felt like that was the insecurity and all that. But then he switches his tune.
Right.
Well, I don't have to go. Maybe I can spend, like, you know, maybe we can do this.
Right.
And so, you know, Earp got a little bonus points right there. And then she's like, no. And then she picks up the heroin and goes right into it. Right. And you just kind of see it kind of like it's weighing on him. It kind of washes on him. It's like, damn, like he knows that he's married to a drug addict.
Yeah.
Like he's seeing all the signs. He sees it. Whether he knows what he knows or doesn't, but he knows there's a huge problem. And that probably isn't the Maddie that he married. And I'm guessing that the drug addiction scene, that's probably some of the stuff that got cut. Would have made it more realistic and everything like that, even to the time and all that.
Sure.
Maybe would have made it a better movie. Don't know. It's pretty much perfect.
It becomes one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, this was, like we keep saying, it's kind of a perfect movie, but at the same time, like maybe if someone were to be ballsy enough to try and remake this, it couldn't be a movie. They'd have to make a series in order to include more of these in-depth characters.
That is true, yeah. But he does go to work, and then we get Ringo versus Holiday, and damn, that scene. I mean, first off, them just kind of like testing the grounds with each other. Then they both start speaking Latin, which thank you, filmmakers, for not giving any subtitles to tell us what they were saying, because we didn't need to know.
Right.
The thing that was intelligent guy A.
Okay, so I was talking to some people. I was in my voiceover class this week, and I was talking to some of the people.
We got to watch the same thing that all the rest of the dummies in the bar got to watch, because they didn't know what was happening either.
And I just I mentioned, I was like,
so I felt
just
very
think about the
involved
character
in the
right
story.
before the Nazis come over the hill and they have to run away.
Curious,
And
didn't know.
everybody in the class was like
enjoying every.
Or not everybody, but they were like, there's Nazis in The Sound of Music?
Ringo's gunplay and control.
Have you ever seen The Sound of Music?
Do you know why that is actually
The
an
whole
impressive
movie
thing?
is about them escaping Austria
to
before
my
the
knowledge,
invasion.
That this was before they had safety catches on these guns. So
Sound
being
of
able to
Music
do
has
that
Nazis
and
in
not
it.
shooting
Yeah.
yourself in the face is pretty impressive.
That's the thing.
Yes,
One of the main
thank you.
characters
And that's
is a
something
Nazi.
that I really, really appreciate, because in a lot of other movies you see the like all this stuff and all the gunplay.
I don't think as many people have seen The Sound of Music as claim to have seen The Sound of
like
Music.
that. But this, everybody
No,
in the
no.
bar,
Most people,
including
they've
Doc
heard
Holliday,
the song "Hills Are
was
Alive"
looking at
and
the
they call it
gun,
good.
being
That's
nervous,
it. That's
kind
all
of
you need to know.
dodging, everything like that.
That
a
is
little
not
bit.
the story.
Even the most cool under fire character still showed nerves, and that little chink in the armor is a beautiful thing to show in a character like that.
Right. Yep.
Following it up with the teacup was possibly the greatest movie moment in like cinematic history.
Yep.
I actually think that I could argue that quite well and defend the shit out of that statement.
Okay.
Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. A top tier role, a top tier performance.
Yep.
Anybody, if you don't try, like anybody trying to do anything other, I can't imagine it ever being as good as this.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm sure Doc Holliday's been portrayed in other movies. I've never heard anybody talk about any other performance
no,
than
this is
Val
quintessential.
Kilmer's. Yeah. Like Val Kilmer is like in the same way that, like, you know what, I can't think of an example. It is very uniform. It by itself. Yes, Val Kilmer is Doc Holliday in everyone's minds now. That's just the way it is.
Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Val Kilmer is Doc Holliday. Yep.
What's his name? Diggs.
Wesley Snipes is Blade.
Wesley Snipes is Diggs. I'm forgetting his first name.
Tay Diggs.
The guy who played Thomas Jefferson in the Hamilton musical on stage. Like, he's who you think, like, doesn't matter how many years we all saw that portrait of him up on the wall in grade school. Now that dude is who we think of when we think of Thomas Jefferson.
I haven't seen Hamilton.
You should. It's worthwhile. It lives up to the hype. Yep. Like that's one of those things where it's like, I understand there's mainstream stuff everyone talks about. You kind of get worried about being disappointed that it's not as good as everyone keeps saying it is. Hamilton's one of those things that lives up to the hype.
Well, that's very fair, Doc. Yep. I'll check out Hamilton. How's Chuck?
I've been busy.
All right. Then after that, we see Wyatt Earp out on a ride and then runs right into Josephine, and she lays the bait for the horses are flirting, and Josephine lays the bait, and Wyatt Earp takes it, and he even says like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he's right into it. Oh, this vixen and her dreams, because. That's all she's like, and that blonde woman, is she your wife? And like all the
that blonde woman.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you
that
know
Karen,
that's his wife. You know, Biehn told you that is his wife, and
no, she pulled
your blonde
every.
Like, I gotta I didn't like.
She had this. She had this down to a science, and she worked the formula on him. She had the manual on how to.
It really seemed that way. But then they wind up together for the rest of their lives. And I mean, I get curious. Yeah. And then Earp goes back. Now, I do see both sides of how this is going to be perceived, because he comes back and he is comparing this. He's comparing his wife to this woman that he just met and all this stuff. So I do see the snaky part of the bad husband in that. But I also see the other side in that, where somebody that he didn't cheat on Maddie with, like, I mean, unless you, like, in the Old West, going out and having a picnic is cheating, which are gonna ride.
Depends who you ask. Yeah,
depends on who you ask. It definitely does.
I think even nowadays, that's one of those depends on who you ask. Yeah.
Yes, that is true. So, like, but he didn't actually, like, physically do anything or anything like that. Yeah. And then he came home and he brought that energy to his wife, and he even said, maybe we don't need to be here. Maybe we can try some other, like, instead of like, I'm gonna leave and go, he's actually trying to get Maddie to get up and go and maybe try something else and all that, and maybe work on the marriage.
We were this close.
I was breaking for chat or for comments. We got one that's, with all that in mind with Josephine, how do you feel about one of her first lines being, "I want one," referring to Earp as the thing to own? Like, that's the thing. Like, she was very entitled. Like, she, like, it kind of had that. Like, she didn't seem like a good character, a life partner, or something like that.
Well, it was interesting because
being one.
Yeah, well, and that's a thing that we run into a lot with some of these, like, old timey movies. When I say old timey, I don't mean like made in the 90s. I mean like taking place in the 1800s.
Period pieces. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is how to translate to an audience, how to get an audience on the side of someone who has, more biblical values, like take Morgan Earp, for instance. He's he's a Bible thumper. How do we keep the audience from hating him? We massage it into spiritualism a little bit, make it a little bit less, old worldy.
Well, but also, I mean, there's a huge portion of the audience that is Christian. So that would have made him, like, he would have been some of their favorite characters because they're just connected to that.
For that too, yes. And it is a balancing act, but I mean, how, like, a way to kind of, I think a way to endear the audience on Josephine is to maybe, like, make her a little, kind of show that she's a quote unquote modern woman. She's not someone who is in denial of her desires, kind of thing,
Right, because she has that line. She's like, and if those are the things that don't make me ladylike, then I just am not a lady.
Exactly. Yeah. And we get that a lot when in a lot of these period pieces. Usually our main character in a period piece is someone who has, ahead of their
progressive.
Ahead of their time ideals to a certain degree. Yes.
Which is like Wyatt Earp slapping the horsemaster with the whip.
Exactly. Same thing.
That would not have happened because that's Now, you had Kurt Russell and you had Dana Delany out with the horses and Maddie and everything like that. Then we go to our favorite again, and we're back to Doc Holliday, and we get Thomas Hayden Church as Billy just cocking off to Doc Holliday.
Thomas Hayden Church was still doing Wings at the time he shot this, wasn't he?
Same hairstyle, so I'm pretty sure he exactly like he just took off the onesie from Wings and he put on.
So he goes from playing like the goofy, lovable, technician guy that is everybody's favorite character on Wings to being this absolute villain in a Wild West movie. I remember being shocked by it when I first saw it. I was like, "Holy shit, that guy!" Like,
what he did, good. He did good. He did good. Yep. And then he's going through. He's like, "Come on, Camptown ladies." And he named the artist saying, I forgot to grab the two artist names. But he's like, "Come on, whatever, fucking nah." And then Doc comes back. He's like, "Well, I'm playing something a little bit different. Chopin,
right."
Fucking Chopin. just how enjoyable he was in every single thing absolutely killed me. Powers Boothe as Curly Bill wigging out from the opium trip, like coming out of the opium den, because that's what that was, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what okay. And then he comes out and
basically the same thing as Maddie, but no pretext.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he comes out and the subtitle even said "Dad." Like he was coming out and he was shouting "Dad."
Oh,
and
yeah,
then the sheriff comes out and then he says "Fred," and I was like, did they fuck up the subtitle? Like, was he calling for Fred the whole time, or did he actually come out there saying "Dad"?
Yeah, no. Well, and I didn't have subtitles on mine, but I do remember, like, even though he says Fred when Fred shows up, when Fred says "Give me them guns," he says "Sure thing, Dad" when he goes to hand him the guns.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. There was also that. Okay. So
he says Fred once when he first shows up, but then he calls him Dad up until after.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that was, and then they killed Fred White. Mm-hmm. Like that whole moment. Also, dude, just Terry O'Quinn with hair really freaks me out because I don't recognize him. At all. Like,
Terry O'Quinn was. Remind me.
He was the governor. I think.
Oh, the mayor. Oh
no, he wasn't Biehn. He wasn't Biehn.
Oh, okay, the governor.
Wait.
No.
Now Sam Elliott. Yeah. He's showing his feeling. He sees that. He goes outside, and then those cowboys almost run over that little kid. Yeah. And then, his mustache goes to business. And because that's what he's like,
it's the combination of things. Because it's pulling the kid out, from the rampaging, cowboys, and then even immediately looking up and seeing that his mom's got a scar on her face from God knows what. Doesn't matter. He doesn't care. He just knows that shit's going down in this town, and he's been ignoring it up to this point, and it's getting to him.
Yeah. But then this is where, so he takes the role as, I think, sheriff, and then Morgan takes the role as deputy. Mm-hmm. And they decide to instill some gun control.
Right.
And it's even, no one's saying you can't carry a gun. No one's saying you can't have a gun. You just can't carry one in town.
Yep. And which even so then seems to be pretty... Part. Which seems to be pretty loosely, like a loose definition of in town, because even like right after that, one of the first things we're seeing is everyone still has their gun. They're just handing them over to the bartender before they start drinking.
Right. That is the point.
I mean, we're not talking a super strict level of gun control here.
No,
and I think to a certain degree, it's not even. I don't think he even because again, there's jumping ahead to what the Cowboys are gathering behind the OK Corral. They're talking like they're going to get into a fight. And
wait, we're almost there. Almost there. All right. Let's see. Yeah, and Wyatt knows exactly what's coming in that brotherly argument, and then they switch over to Doc has been going on this run for 36 hours straight, and he is all the way in on it until he collapses. And this is also where you're really seeing Virgil is just that hothead. He's coming up, he's like, don't you talk to me that way, like all this stuff, and they got Sam Elliott to really play one of the most hot-headed characters that I've ever seen him play, because he was just dumb. Like, I even sent a message to my buddy who really loves Tombstone, man. Sam Elliott did not roam properly. Like, he did not. He went, I showed up to town, now you all do what I say. No. That is not how that works.
Right, yeah.
Anywhere. Like, you don't do that.
He was kind of banking, like, even after trying, maybe not as hard as Wyatt did, but he was trying to basically say, I'm not a lawman anymore. I'm here to make my fortune in a silver town. I'm not a lawman. Stop treating me like a lawman.
Like Sam Elliott's like, this isn't about you, Wyatt. And Wyatt's like, are you fucking kidding me? He's like,
but then I
felt like ego coming from Virgil and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you may be this big badass and out there, but this isn't about you. But then you have the good man that Wyatt Earp is going, I'm your brother.
Yeah.
Anything you do involves me. Like, if you're in danger, of course that involves me. And that's why Virgil, like, the character of Virgil, dumb.
And even then, it's like you said, like, he rolls into town and starts doing the whole, like, he can't have guns. It's like, he basically, after denying I'm a lawman this whole time, once he does put the badge on, he basically kind of expects everyone to do a 180 on the whole, like, I'm Virgil Earp. If I say it's the law, it's the law. Like, like you know who I do. You know who I am? Kind of moments,
Yeah. That speaking of quotable lines from Doc Holliday, when he collapses and Big Nose Kate is right there, and he's just like, "You may be a good woman, then again, you may be the Antichrist."
Right.
Like, shit. Every line, every damn thing that he says, and then. Bam, bam, return of Wyatt Earp, the lawman.
Right.
He tells Virgil that it's his call on how they go about this, how they deal with it. And then it's really funny because the immediate thing that he says after telling Virgil it's his call, he starts barking orders.
Right.
He's like, it's your call, Virgil. Give the shotgun to Doc. You don't want to be out there with that, was it like land howitzer or...
Street howitzer. Yeah, I thought that's a good nickname for a shotgun. Street howitzer. That was. I want to hop back one scene.
Now we're at the OK Corral. That's where.
I want to hop back one scene and to go back to Maddie again really quick, because if we're going to talk about doing some justice for Maddie Earp. Because he walks in, he says, okay, if we're doing this, I guess you better swear me in. And then we have a scene where you see like nothing is said. There is no dialogue. You just see Wyatt Earp walk in, change his jacket from, his businessman jacket to his gunslinger jacket. And while he's doing that, you can see clearly he's got a badge on, and there's exchange of glances between him and Maddie, where Maddie's looking at him and the badge, and he's looking at her, almost daring her to say something about it, and she doesn't. And then he puts on his duster and heads back out, and that's it. That's the whole scene. You gotta feel for Maddie on this one on two fronts, because she's been moved across the country on his whim to join up with his brothers at the Silvertown.
We're just assuming that.
Okay, but that's kind of what's implied, because it's like it's his brothers they're joining up with.
She's drugged out of her mind. I don't imagine she's really wanting much more than enough money to get drugs.
Maybe. Okay. But my point is that as soon as they get back in town, while he's the one driving force, like, not here to be a lawman. We're here to make money. This is, this is going to be our life now, maybe have kids. And then after spending one day with actress chick, he's coming back and going, hey, how about we just fucking blow town and travel? Like after being sold so hard on the settling down in Tombstone and having kids and being a businessman's wife. And then, I don't know, what is it, like 2 months later? I'm not sure exactly how the timeline goes. They try to clue us in, but it's not long. Now he's got a badge on again after swearing up and down he's not a lawman anymore, vehemently, fiercely to anyone who asks. I'm not a lawman anymore. All of a sudden he shows up with a badge on. Like, she's been kind of like, I mean, okay, yeah, maybe it's easy to understand why she would have fallen into drug addiction, because she had nothing else going in her life except being Wyatt Earp's wife, and he wasn't exactly much of a husband.
That seems like a lot of pulling. I don't know. That wasn't part of the story. That wasn't in the story. I don't know what her situation was. As far as I know, Wyatt Earp was a damn good man doing everything he could for her, and she wound up being a drug addict, and he tried to move to get her off of drugs.
Okay. I mean, I suppose that's, yeah.
I literally have no idea over Maddie's character. All I know is throughout this story, she is sitting in a room just getting high all the fucking time. She is not walking around. She is not coming to visit Wyatt Earp. She is not anything. She's not mother to children. She's doing literally nothing. She has no job. She is just sitting there getting high all the damn time. Right. So my pity for her, I guess it does exist, but at the same time, it's like.
But like, also imagine, like, I mean, we both are very familiar with what happens to your head when your purpose is not realized. When you are a creator who is not given the opportunity to create, or you are a family man with no family. We know what happens when you don't have the thing that you truly need, because instead you're doing what you think you're supposed to. Okay. What would be the difference? Like, we don't know. What if someone had come to Maddie and told her, you could be an actress? Would she have been any different from Josephine at all if she had ever been told that it was allowed? We don't know. And that's kind of
we don't know, but I'm not assigning a bunch of empathy and sympathy to this character who just sat on her ass doing drugs the whole movie. Like,
no,
I'm just
true.
Not assigning that empathy to her, because.
I'm right there with you, but I think that's kind of where my point is that I feel like the filmmakers did her dirty by making that her character just a drug addict. That is a burden, and that's
by definition, they do that for every single character who is the vehicle for somebody else to make change. Every single character like that gets done dirty because they're the vehicle for change.
Okay. That's a fair point.
This was just Maddie's turn. The only problem is this is a real life character who was a drug addict and then died shortly after from all of the drugs.
Okay. Yeah.
So whether you have sympathy for that character or not, that's definitely a personal thing, and that's like, people are going to look at that in different ways, obviously.
And I guess that's why that scene gets me, because he goes in wearing the badge, going back on all of that he had said before. There is that tense moment where, like I said, he's with his eyes, he's daring her to say something, and she doesn't. Like, if you're gonna paint her in that way, why include that scene other than to just further that conflict of
that felt like it was a building tension moment, because that was right before the OK Corral started off. Like,
that's true. Yeah, that was the very next scene.
Shit was going down. The Cowboys came into town. They had their guns. They weren't giving their guns up. All this stuff. So Wyatt went to go arm up, and I'm sorry, but if you are about to be under attack and like anything like that, then yeah, you kind of shoot a look. This ain't the time.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
I'm not
I don't
giving
know
her
why
like
I'm
a
hanging up.
wild
It's
sympathy,
not.
yeah.
It's not like I'm like some like rabid Matty
Because
Earp
it's not
fan.
like
It
Wyatt
was
Earp
just
gave her the drugs. Like, as if
right.
he gave her the drugs, that would be one thing. He didn't. He never put it in her hands. He asked her, like, is that maybe a little bit too much, and everything like that. He's like, is that the same bottle that you got, or is that a new bottle?
Right.
Like she's just like, I'm on drugs. Fuck off. Leave me alone.
Well,
And if that's the case, don't really give
I
a
think
shit
I was
about
kind
you.
of like taken aback by it this time because, like I said, I've seen this movie a dozen times back when it came out.
Yeah.
For some reason, in this viewing, watching it, that was the first time like I've known how her character
But
is.
think
I know,
about the political journey that you've gone on
yeah.
heavily in the last, especially
And
the
it
last
was, and
7
it was
years.
the fact that watching this movie, it jumps right out, like right at, like her first line is, "I couldn't find any laudanum." He's trying to introduce her to his brothers for the first time. She's barely noticed they're there. It's like, I guess it kind of, after all the times I've seen this movie, it threw me over how just immediately her character is defined this way and trailed straight through, and it just rubbed me the wrong way this one time. And so I
It
don't
does
have it. I
kind of
don't
make
have any
sense
sort of
if
like,
you're on like a long journey, you probably ran out.
yeah. But
And
yeah,
like as a drug addict, you're fiending by the time you get to your
oh no,
destination.
it all makes sense. I'm just saying, like for me, I don't know why of all things in the world, I'm hanging up on how on how Matty Earp was portrayed because I'd never cared before yesterday. But for some reason, this one time, after dozens of viewings of the movie, I was just suddenly felt like, hey, this is weird. And then every time she shows up on screen, that's how it just furthers that narrative. And I'm like, hold on, do we even get to know what her favorite color is? This is not fair, America.
Ah, couldn't care less. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for Matty Earp. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if I ever go back to watch Tombstone, any iteration of Tombstone ever,
Right.
Matty Earp is not who I'm going to watch that movie for or that show for.
No, I know.
It's gonna be Wyatt. It's gonna be Doc. It's gonna be
Like I said, I don't know why I'm so hung up on it. Just for some reason, it got me this time. It got me.
that is fair. So, like you said, so Wyatt Earp goes in. He sees Matty. He gets his guns. He gets his duster, and they get back there and they go out to the street. Now, so what? Mayor Biehn, what he said to them is historically accurate, and that is why this is where the political nature of Tombstone actually comes in, because an official came through and told them in front of people. People saw them. People heard them say, "You guys don't have to worry about it. They're unarmed. Like, everything's okay." And they were just, and like historical accounts of that are basically like, thanks. And they just walked past, fully armed, walked past.
Right.
Like, they were not, they didn't care that they had guns or not. They were like, that was an execution. Like, that's what that
Right.
was read as.
Which is
So
what I was
you
gonna, which is
have-
what I was gonna get at when I was saying before was that the whole like you're not allowed to carry guns thing. Probably they never intended actual gun control. They were creating a pretext for which they could attack the Cowboys with.
And that is exactly what people now are afraid of. That has not changed one single bit, because this is an exact example of it. Because what did we say earlier? One of the biggest historical inaccuracies of almost all Westerns is most of the cowboys were black and Mexican. Most of the
Right.
lawmen were white men. So
Right.
what you had here was white police officers telling people that they can't carry guns, and then finding or being told that those people didn't have guns, and then going up to them to kill them anyway. So
Right.
that is an armed police force, a disarmed civilian force, and they were just going to kill them. That is exactly what people are afraid of.
Yep.
Like, and the reason they're afraid of that is because throughout the history of this world, that keeps happening.
Yeah.
So,
And I get that.
damn. And then what happens? Okay, so let's get into the OK Corral, because this is what changed the West. The OK Corral is what changed the West. You had 3 officers, and then one random dude, Doc Holliday,
Right.
showing up to 4 cowboys. 2 were armed, 2 were unarmed. And then you had the one brother that came through because he wasn't armed, and he had his hands up, and he was walking up to Wyatt Earp, and Wyatt even says, "The fight is commenced. Either get to shoot, get to fighting, or get out of here," or something. I can't remember his exact line.
Right.
But that dude had no weapon. He was going up because his brother was one of the ones who was armed, so he knew that his brother was about to die. So he went up and just tried to get in the way of the gun and all that, and then he got shoved to the side, and they just started blasting.
Yeah.
So essentially, the police force showed up to these unarmed men and just started blasting.
Yeah.
Then, following that, there was a memorial, basically summer of protest. People showed up saying that these men were unlawfully murdered and all this and all that. Like this, whoa.
Yeah.
The movie that I saw this time, post 2020, is not the same movie I would have seen in 2019.
Well, it certainly wasn't for me. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like. I heard buzzing and then dinging.
Yeah, that's it's the noise cancellation filter that I'm running takes a second to adapt, and so every time the image changes on my screen, it got to readapt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. All right. Then back to Thomas Haden Church, where they're all just having that standoff moment, and then Doc Holliday throws Thomas Haden Church the wink, and then and you see he's like. And then Wyatt Earp goes, "Oh, hell."
Yeah.
Because as soon as he sees the change in the eyes, he knew what was about to go down, and that's what kicked everything off for the OK Corral.
And this is what, past the historical accuracy, this was the first, I think, where we once again harken back to the samurai films that inspired all the Westerns. That was a very samurai movie moment.
Oh, just everybody the standoff?
It's a standoff, and it isn't until someone's facial expression changes a little bit that all of a sudden everyone's going all at once. That's a very Kurosawa moment.
That is. I was about to ask, are you a big Kurosawa fan? Like Seven Samurai? Are you?
Seven Samurai was one. Yeah, I don't know if I would call myself a Kurosawa fan because I think I've maybe only seen 2 or 3 of his films. Oh, okay. But if you're gonna talk samurai films, he is the one to talk about. And it is a pretty standard thing that American Westerns are heavily influenced, if not directly inspired by samurai films. So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
All it is roaming warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Another Doc Holliday line, "You're a daisy if you do." I really love that. When Biehn comes up and he's like, "Those were unarmed men," and everything like that. You guys are under arrest. And then Wyatt just looks at him and he's like, "I don't think I'll let you arrest me today, Biehn."
Right, yeah.
What a line. What a line. But so this is one of those things, if you watch, a lot of people, when Dirty Harry first came out, they were like, yeah, Dirty Harry's the hero. Dirty Harry is not a hero.
No, yeah.
Dirty Harry is a racist piece of shit cop.
Yeah.
And it's a movie just about him being a ginormous dick.
It's a weird thing to reconcile, especially when it comes to two things, and there's discussion about it even still today when it comes to superhero movies, of this idea of the one guy operating outside the law is the only one that could actually get anything done.
Right.
In real life, that person is a psychopath that needs to be in jail as well. But we keep deifying them in movies because they make for good narrative. It's very difficult to weave a narrative together, when you're talking about
pretty much afraid of the American justice system.
There's that too. That doesn't, the flaws of the American justice system does not help at all, for sure.
Not really. You can't really have a hero lawyer story anymore because all the legislation that has gone up for the protections and everything, like they just can't. You can't have heroic lawyers anymore. That's not a thing.
No,
There's
yeah.
too much garbage through legislation that has prevented something like that from happening.
Yeah. I mean, who's gonna watch a 2-hour-long movie about jury selection when that's what decides the case way ahead of time nowadays?
Pretty much. The historical accuracy over the extreme makeup on the dead during the
Oh
funeral
yeah,
procession.
that always got me every time. Every viewing of this movie, every time when they get to the makeup that the corpses have on them, I'm just like, Jesus.
Every
It
time,
gets
but
me.
accurate.
Yeah.
And just how fired up Ringo is. I mean, he is just ready to go. And
For a guy that's
now
been portrayed as absolute cold-hearted all the way up until this point, he's gutted because these guys are dead.
And now, the big debate. I'm your Huckleberry, or I'm your Hucklebearer. So the Huckle in the South is like, so in the North we call it a pallbearer.
Okay.
In the South it was a Hucklebearer. So if he was being a smartass like I'm your Huckleberry, like Huckleberry Finn,
Right.
that's one thing. And it's a little bit, but if he's saying I'll be your Hucklebearer, that is a much more sinister line. It is a much better line. It is more accurate to who Doc Holliday was.
Yeah.
And the problem is, there is no version of the script that says Hucklebearer. However, they think historically the line was misheard and it was represented to where Doc Holliday actually did say Hucklebearer, but everybody has recorded it as Huckleberry.
And here's the thing. Here's been my take on it all these years, is that he did say Huckleberry, but he knows he's talking to Johnny Ringo, who is just as educated as he is, and he's assuming that Ringo's taking it for a play on words to Hucklebearer. He's saying Huckleberry,
But when you
but he
listen
knows
to the
how
line-
it's going to be taken.
So in the script, it's Huckleberry.
Okay.
In historical connotation, they believe it was Hucklebearer. What Val Kilmer says is Hucklebearer.
So he met in the middle.
He definitely did like a true dick. Can't
See,
have a debate if it's neither one of them, because he doesn't go, I'll be a Huckleberry. He says, I'll be a
and
Hucklebearer.
maybe that was a decision not just to not settle the debate or anything like that, but also, like I said, he wanted Johnny Ringo to understand the connotation, like not just because he, I'm saying this to you that could be nothing or it could be taken the wrong way, and you know what it means then, because you and I both speak Latin. So you know what I mean.
Which Johnny Ringo was his parents were highly educated. He was a college educated person. That was accurate. I don't know how educated he was, but and neither did they didn't. It's a long time ago, man. Like a lot of this is theory. They're just like he did go to college. The night of the attack, where the Cowboys come and they try to attack everybody.
Right. Yep.
They go after the women first.
Yep.
Could you figure out why?
I mean, I don't think it was a lot of strategy. I think it was literally about hurting them, and maybe even enticing like a more if we were to go art of war it, make them good and angry, because then they'll make mistakes. People who fight angry don't fight as
that
well.
was the thing. Like I agree with that, but they also attacked them as well. So if they only went after the women, I got that. And then if they and setting them up to go for revenge or something like that, But they just went for the women first, which if you're attacking somebody, you would attack the people who would attack you first.
I guess, but we also don't know how many of this gang was involved. It could be that the women were just easier to get to first. It's like you go to their house and shoot their women. You go find them at the bar and shoot them there or whatever. The women were essentially sitting ducks.
They could have just been going to different locations. Like they could have like going into the house, and it just happened that all the women were there when they busted into Virgil's house. And
right.
Okay, that
they were just basically going like, let's go find them, check their houses, check the bars where they hang out, see where you can find them, and wherever they are, shoot them. And they just happened to check Virgil's house first, where all the wives happened to be hanging out that night.
Yeah. And then back to Michael Rooker playing a good guy, coming back, ditching the sash, and being like, I had no part in it. That's not what I'm about. Like,
yeah.
I love seeing
I would have been all for shooting Morgan in the back, but shooting the ladies, no. That's where I'm out.
Yeah, that's where we crossed the line.
Yeah.
And then things are getting a little bit too heavy, so the actors leave town, and this is where Doc says, and so she walked out of our lives
forever. Yep. Which she did not.
She did. She walked out of his.
I guess that's true.
Doc Holliday never saw her again.
Okay, that's true. That's right. Because the one time she comes back at the ranch,
Yep, the one who said it, he never saw her again. So technically, it worked.
Technically, yes.
It's he's not the life that really mattered to her. So really.
He never had a shot with her, honestly. Yeah.
And then as the Earps are leaving town and all that, Virgil's down an arm, Morgan's dead. The women and Virgil are leaving. Then they go to attack them at the end. There's the birth of the Marshal. Now, this... Damn. And that line from Kurt Russell, I'm coming and hell's coming with me.
Yep.
Damn.
Calling back to the beginning. Yep.
What a line.
Leading into the Godfather style killing spree montage.
Very much so, and that was a line where, and that was where they very much crossed the line, because you see Wyatt Earp put the barrel in the man's mouth and he's on his knees, and then the camera comes off of him, and then bam, it's like, these are not the good guys anymore, man. But I gotta say, I really love the line when they bust into the brothel. And it was like, don't move. And then Wyatt Earp is looking at the woman. He's like, well, by all means, move. Because he busted into him mid-coitus. So
right, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Which opium pipe? Nope.
Yeah, which brings us back to the old school Westerns, because old school Westerns definitely had this kind of thing going on. Just where it was, people busted in to, the opium dens, they busted into the brothels, they busted into the barber shop to take them out.
But there is
riding the horse into the barber shop was a little extreme, but very Western movie style. Yep.
Yeah. Over the top, but it had to be there. It worked. The thing was, it happened. It showed in there. It was over the top, and it didn't seem out of place in any way.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, that comes from
that's when you
all
can pull
those
stuff
and
like that off.
And that comes from all the years of us having this sort of the Western gunfight extremity kind of homage that's going on. That's what makes this movie so interesting, is the fact that it is a true story, and yet it fits into that Hollywood over the top Western story perfectly.
Yes.
It's what makes it so unique.
But it's also, those are superheroes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, Superman busting into a place, Batman busting into a place, taking everybody out. None of this went away.
Yeah, that's true.
This is all. I mean,
it just got remade into different.
Look at the MCU. Look at Captain America going through with Nazis. Look at Iron Man going to Gomera.
Right.
That's basically a Western. That scene was that scene going to Gomera and Iron Man is basically this montage.
No, that's true. You're right. You're absolutely right. Yes. The MCU is the new Western.
I like it.
Yeah.
So here is where I really understood Doc Holliday, and this is one of those things. The simplicity in the story is very, very key. You know, Doc Holliday, why are you doing this? Why are you signing up for all debt? Like, why are you this? Like, well, he's my friend.
He's my friend, yeah.
And then the guy's like, well, hell, I've got lots of friends. And then Doc just replies, I don't,
yeah.
Relatable. Like,
yeah.
That's the thing. Like,
absolutely.
I've got like a couple of my buddies that I've known for like 30 years, and they'll send me messages, and like the only kind of friends that I'll have is and then there'll be a video going to be like, look, somebody fucked up, we gotta go take care of them, we gotta hide the body, we gotta do this, everything like that. And then the other character's like, well, whose car are we taking?
Right, yeah.
Because that's the only question that matters, and that is it. That like, yeah. And that just, because either you have that kind of friend or you don't. And if you have that kind of friend, then the Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday relationship it's one that's gonna reach you. All right, the death of Billy Zane, the subtle inclusion of having gay characters, I thought it was nice, because you didn't have to do that. But also, I feel like there's going to be people who say that it wasn't enough.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that we never get any clue in as to whether or not they had any sort of relationship beyond.
You don't know if Billy Zane's character was gay. You only knew that dude was in love with him because Josephine was actually with Billy Zane.
Right. And so that's kind of, it's, you know, that... What was that character's name? I know they all just called him Sister Boy. What was his actual name?
Crap, I forgot. I meant to look that up.
Yeah, but you know
that was Jason Priestley's character.
Yeah, like I never recognized him. I've always known it was him. Never once have I watched this movie and gone, oh, there's Jason Priestley. He's absolutely unrecognizable in this. Disappears into that character. But the way that you could tell
Billy Breckenridge.
Breckenridge, thank you, Billy. Yes, it's that he's in love with this guy, either genuinely or just as a fan, as anyone would have a crush on any good looking actor. But it's there, like you can see that there is genuine care there, and they kind of well illustrate that was the breaking point. Look, of all the things that the Cowboys have done, the fact that they killed this guy, this beautiful, talented man, for no reason, that was what got him, like, in the middle of, he's surrounded by angry men with guns, and he turns his back on them because of this guy. Like, as subtle and tiny as it was powerful and beautiful.
I really loved the inclusion of it. So now all of the scenes with Henry Hooker, Charlton Heston, his cameo, those were the first scenes that were shot for the film, and that is what threw the film over budget and put them behind schedule so freaking hardcore.
Which is weird because they seemed like such simple scenes.
Honestly, I think the director was just having a field day on hanging out with Charlton Heston. And like,
that definitely,
we have to reshoot it. Sorry, we got to do it again, Mr. Heston.
There was that vibe. I remember this time watching it during the goodbye scene when he's saying, like, don't worry, they'll have to go through us before they get to Doc Holliday, so you can go off and have your gunfight. You could see it, like, they're supposed to be in character. Nobody in that scene is in character. They're all like, I'm on camera with Charlton Heston. Woo! Like, no one is keeping their cool in that scene at all.
I would have had a rough time keeping my cool, I'm not going to lie, but I'm also not Kurt Russell.
Right.
Because I'd probably I might have a hard time keeping myself composed around Kurt Russell if I ever wound up in the same room as him. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. Yep.
He wants revenge for being born is the best version of some people are just mad at the world that I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Continuing the streak of quotable lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm your Huckleberry, play for blood, you know Daisy at all. I mean, 3 mentions of Daisy in this movie. Like, well, that'd be a Daisy. Well,
Yeah.
like all of that, just wow. And I just love the line from Doc Holliday, just the last charge of Wyatt Earp and his immortals.
Yep.
Dude, every line, everything that he says. And then during that chase scene, dropping the sash. Wait a minute. How did we skip over the death of Curly Bill?
Oh, yeah. And you kind of skipped over the death of Johnny Ringo there too. The two most.
That's where I was getting to. Was I was about to Johnny Ringo, but at the same time,
Ike dropping the sash at the chase. That's after Johnny Ringo's death.
yeah, that's when as soon as I saw dropped the sash, I realized I went past Ringo and I went past Curly Bill. So the thing is, when Texas Jack, Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp, and Creek Johnson,
yes. Creek Johnson and Texas Jack. Man, you don't get more Western names than that.
you really don't. But you had just these 5 characters: Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Creek Johnson, Texas Jack, and then for some reason I can't remember Michael Rooker's character's name.
He didn't have a cool name. He just had his regular name.
Sherman McMasters.
Right, McMasters.
Okay, yeah. But they show up to the creek battle, and that's where you see Kurt Russell or Wyatt Earp. He just no, and then no, no,
Just walks right into the fray, which entices Curly Bill to also walk into the fray and basically just try and gun each other down. But Curly Bill misses.
Everybody missed everybody except for Wyatt Earp, and that's actually in the OK Corral as well. When they shot that scene, the other, like Doc Holliday and the other 2 brothers, they went for cover, they moved, but Wyatt Earp never moved, and that was something that he was in real life historically known for. Is during gunfights, you couldn't Wyatt Earp was just cool. He was cool under fire every time, which makes it understandable on why he's kind of harder to hit, because if you're used to leading somebody a little bit and like that, and you're like, he's going to move this way and he doesn't move, then you're leading and you're intentionally missing him because you're just used to a certain type of thing. So being cool under fire actually probably was the thing that saved his life.
And I did appreciate that they kind of hung a hat on it, because that's kind of one of those, like when they're talking afterwards, like, you ever see anything like that?
I've
never even heard of anything like that. Yeah. It's like, no, that was nuts. That was
But the survivors from the Cowboys that got away, they the two of the survivors and they died later, but they confirmed that story. Like, the legend grew not from the Earps, but from the Cowboys that got away. So, just another thing, man. And let's see. Yeah, he drops the sash, and that's that. Hell no, shoot his ass.
Right, yeah.
Like, no, you don't get to just do all that stuff and then...
To a certain degree, though, I kind of get it, because when it comes to someone like Ike as a character, it's more fun to see him humiliated than actually killed.
It's symbolic, and I do understand that, but it's just one of those cases, and everybody thinks the same thing. You got somebody who goes into a public area and, bang bangs like 15 people, and then they just put their gun down and go, ha, gotta take me alive.
Right.
We're all rooting for that to not happen.
Yeah.
Like,
on a visceral level, sure.
Yeah, so that was the part of me that when the sash went down and they're just like, okay, he gave up. It's like, man, fuck you. You started this whole fucking thing off by going completely armed to a place where you heard they were unarmed to just go waste everybody. And now because he drops his pretty bow, you're done. Like, that to me, real, historically accurate, real. I don't care. I didn't like it. It just.
It does kind of make sense though, because also to a certain degree, like, Ike was the messenger. He was the guy who, without the backup of the Cowboys behind him was utterly cowardly and harmless.
Nothing but a coward, yeah.
The only reason this guy had any balls whatsoever is because he knew he had Curly Bill and Johnny Ringo standing behind him,
Yeah.
backing him up. As soon as those guys weren't around, he turned into Jello, and that was over and over again in Ike's case. And so yeah, it had leaving, like, if you wanted to pick one guy to leave alive to go tell the story to as a warning to others, Ike's the one you pick, because he's the one who's most useless without his backup.
Which is,
we nearly nailed it right at the
almost,
hour.
almost. And this is Doc Holliday's deathbed scene. And if you ever had the slightest feeling for me, if you were ever my friend, leave now. Which, I get it. I do get it. If you have a lot of memories with somebody, you don't want their last memory of you to be that. You want the last memory to be something that actually is worth holding on to.
Yeah.
I get it.
I go back. I've been going back and forth on that a lot lately, because I've got, some elderly members of my family that are nearing their final days, and there is something to be said about, not wanting to reach the end alone, while also at the same time not wanting anyone to remember you in that state. It's tough. It's a fucked situation all around.
Yeah.
And so it's like I get where Doc Holliday is coming from in this scene. I also get where Wyatt Earp is coming from in this scene, and that just kind of is probably what makes that scene so heavy and so important to the story. Like, of all the things that are being portrayed here in this movie, the fact that they included Doc Holliday's last moments with Wyatt Earp just kind of goes to show, like, above all things, what their friendship was. Like, we don't get that scene with Virgil. So
no, but we don't. But Virgil doesn't deserve that scene. I'm sorry. He was a hothead who was all ego and everything like that. He showed up to a place that was not his, and he tried to run the show, and he got ran the fuck out of town, down half an arm.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens when you show up into somebody else's house and tell them what to do. I mean, really. All right, so I'm going to give, definitely. It's Tombstone. It's a must-watch.
Absolutely.
There's no way around it.
It's yeah. And it's like I said before, there are most the American Western is one of those, like, worldwide cultural things that we have given to the world, but it is largely derived from Japanese samurai movies. But Tombstone is 100% American, and it defines the genre. It is historically accurate. You don't get more American than Tombstone.
I struggle with that because Westerns came out before samurai films did. So I struggle with that statement a bit, but I think, like, the really good Westerns were modeled off of samurai films, but Westerns started before samurai films did.
True.
One of the very first, like...
We're
talking about bullet time photography. The very first example of bullet time photography is a black man on a horse advertising a Western.
I guess here's the thing. Would you consider those early days, like, black and white silent film Westerns, would you consider them Westerns if, considering when they came out, the Wild West was still going on?
It wasn't. It wasn't. Come on.
Kinda was, a little bit.
Well, to the same degree that when I grew up on a farm, and I did rodeo, and I know how to lasso and do all that stuff. Did I grow up in the Old West? Definitely not.
But it is fair to say that some of the most definitive genre-defining Western films were adaptations of samurai films.
Okay, so The Great Train Robbery, 1903, is the, or, okay, so it was released in 1903, but it was filmed in 1899. So that was okay.
Which is technically only about 10 years after Tombstone takes place.
Come on. Shit, was it? When did
the banner in the theater that showed the theater said 1881 on it.
You're right. Fuck. Damn it. Crap. So yeah, so 1881, and then the first Western was filmed in 1889. So yeah, at that time, that was.
So that wasn't a Western,
Current
that
events.
was just a movie, yeah.
But at the same time, if we watch an action movie now, is it an action movie, or is it, or like if we watch a political movie, is it a political movie, or is it just current events? Like it's still a movie. It's still a genre.
Okay, that's fair.
So,
that's fair.
Damn, that is a.
Sorry.
That was a big bong.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
All right, so those are the final thoughts on Tombstone. Definitely a must-watch. Apparently, the story took place 8 years before the first Western was filmed, and some of the early Western stars were at Wyatt Earp's funeral, and they even said one of them cried, which
Right.
kind of a dumb thing to include for the very final line of the movie.
Well, I think I think the point of that was that
Well, just how emotionally connected these actors were. Like,
I
completely get it.
And remember,
Would you
this
like-
movie
would you believe
did come out at a time. I mean, we're talking about, like, okay, for better or for worse, all right? If you like, not like, and this includes the overarching concept of masculinity, both the good and the bad. Okay, toxic masculinity along with good fatherly strength, all rolled into one.
I think the 80s
Western
and 90s were some of the worst periods in time for that.
And Western films were the most iconic displays of it. And so to sit there and say that these Western movie stars, these icons of manliness, to declare in the 90s that one of them cried at a man's funeral is basically saying the sky fell, is basically what you're saying at that point. To say in a movie that was made in the 90s, to speak of a Western star in that way, that's basically the weight of it, saying that this man was so beloved that the manliest of men did the least manly thing ever known.
I'm just really happy that John Wayne is nowhere near this movie.
I know, right? Not mentioned.
Just nowhere near, like, because I know a lot of people, and I heard this growing up, like, John Wayne, that's a real man. It's like, no, he's not. Like, I'm sorry, John Wayne was basically Donald Trump. He used Hollywood as a way to dodge the draft.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, man. There's a reason why Elvis is the king. Like, he's an artist, colorful, flamboyant, did not care about what people thought, but when it was time, he strapped his boots on and he went to work. That is what makes Elvis the king and John Wayne a damn joke.
I think after the Birdcage came out, that was basically the end of the John Wayne era right there. Did you see the Birdcage? He's not in the Birdcage. They do a John Wayne joke.
I don't remember it.
When Robin Williams is trying to tell Nathan Lane how to be more manly, he tells him, do John Wayne, pretend you're John Wayne. And Nathan Lane gets up, does a whole like sachet walk, hey little lady, like he could not look gayer, and then goes, how was that? Was that right? And then Robin Williams goes like, no, that was perfect. I just never realized that he walked like that. And that was it. No one ever brought up John Wayne as manly ever again.
Wow. Okay, we're definitely going to have to go back and do the Birdcage. We already have this week's audience one. If you want to do the birdcage for next week,
I was wanting to do Don't Think Twice for my pick.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. The audience one, by the way, just to sneak this one real quick, is Requiem.
Requiem.
Requiem for a Dream.
Oh.
Do you know of any other movie that has a Requiem in the title?
There is a movie called Requiem, isn't there? Just called Requiem? Isn't there?
No,
I feel like there is.
There might be. That's anytime I've ever heard of anything referred to as Requiem, I always just assumed it was Requiem for a Dream, so I may have literally...
Did they say Requiem for a Dream, or did they say Requiem?
They said Requiem for a Dream.
Okay. All right.
So
Does our audience hate us?
I think they do.
Okay.
I think they do. Why? Like, why do you hate Requiem for? Did you? Hate
No, but it's one of those. Like, remember how we were talking about kids last week? I've heard people talk about Requiem in the same way.
I haven't seen it in a long time, so maybe it's gonna hit me in a lot different way than it did the last time. All right, so just get right into it.
Yeah, why not? Why not? So now we're doing There's Something About Mary, correct?
Yes, There's Something About Mary, directed by Bobby and Peter Farrelly, written by Ed Decter, John J. Strauss, and the Farrelly brothers, starring Cameron Diaz, Ben Stiller, and Matt Dillon, with Chris Elliott, Lynn Shaye, Keith David, Markie Post, Willie Garson, Sarah Silverman, Harland Williams, Richard Jenkins, Jeffrey Tambor, and W. Earl Brown. Now, and the casting was done by Rick Montgomery, which, once again, casting really nailed it this week.
Oh yeah, well, and some of these folks may not have been very well known when the movie came out, but clearly the talent was there because they all became well known later on, as for sure. Except maybe
Chris Elliott.
Yeah, Chris Elliott. He went the opposite direction.
Yeah, he was, and Harland Williams. They were both well known, and then they really didn't do much after this.
No,
at least not that I was able to key in on. The opening credits and theme song. Oh,
what did I just see Chris Elliott in? I'm trying to remember. He went back to TV, didn't he? I'm trying to think. I seem to remember he was recently in a TV show.
I can't. I don't know. Anytime I think of Chris Elliott, I think Cabin Boy.
See, for me, it's Get a Life.
Never saw it.
That might have been before your time. You might have still been
Cabin Boy was too, though.
True. Well, Get a Life was a TV show, and so that less callback on that one.
Less chance of me seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Richman was the singer songwriter for most of this movie. So the opening theme song, like, "There's just something about Mary."
Schitt's Creek. That's what I just saw him in.
Oh, I haven't seen that either, but I did hear that's good.
It is good, yes.
I did hear that. So Jonathan Richman, honestly, like your voice and your songwriting has been stuck in my head for freaking forever, because there's something about Mary, like, just the music really got it. When he starts the movie off, he's like, "When I was 16 years old, I fell in love," and then we meet Renice, played by Cindy Oliver, that he's going up like, "Hey, let's go to prom," and she's like, "There's this guy, and I hear that he might ask me, and so I'm gonna hold that off."
Yeah.
But if that doesn't, then
if everything else falls through, maybe.
She's like, "I was perfectly clear. If everything falls through."
When I first saw this movie, boy, did that hit home. Jesus.
Oh, come on, man. We were all there when we were teenagers, and even beyond, going up to somebody that you're really into who just ain't that into you.
Well, and here's the thing, and it occurred to me, and it's like I want to kind of get into this a little bit beforehand, before we get into details, because I'll pull this running theme throughout. All right?
Okay.
Because this is one of those conversations that I am seeing pop up online a lot, especially on TikTok. The discussions having to do with the fact that, ladies, if you give a guy a compliment, an honest compliment, no matter how half-hearted it is, he will remember that compliment for the rest of his life.
Yeah, because we don't
Because
get that many.
yeah, most guys can count on their fingers every genuine compliment they have ever gotten in their life from friends, family members, loved ones, you name it. It is not a part of our culture. So, like, I remember seeing one literally where they said, like, if you walk up to a guy and just say, "Hi, handsome," you will be remembered for the rest of his life. And when I saw that video, that person saying that, I thought, yep, because I remember the one time it happened to me. I still remember her name. Haven't seen her in 20 years, but I know her name, and I remember everything about that moment, because yes, it never happens. That is what this movie is about. This movie is about the fact that Mary was
any attention, and
she was genuinely nice to him for the first and probably only time in his life. And yes, he kind of became obsessed with it. That is a thing that happens to guys. It's not the healthiest thing in the world, for sure. This movie does not make it look healthy, to its credit.
No, but, this is a comedy. This is not an instruction manual. This is not drama. Like, he's not that. There's not a message in this. This is a comedy.
Right. Yes.
And there's not any part of this meant to be taken seriously.
But yeah, that is what this movie is about. Is that one time one girl was nice to him, and he never ever let it go. And that is every guy in America can identify with that. And that's probably why this movie was such a big hit, even beyond the fact that it was a Farrelly Brothers movie. Like, every guy identified with that.
Fair enough. The intro to Mary and the legend of Woogie begins. Just Willie Garson just taught, like, basically, like, I thought at some point, like, I remember thinking this when I was young, but I thought when I was young that Willie Garson was probably going to show up to be like Woogie's future husband or something like that, because he was just, he's like, yeah, valedictorian, football player, good looking guy. Like, just Willie Garson could not shut up about Woogie, so I thought that might be where the
that was going to be the tell.
Thinking that, but it took a lot of work to try to go back and remember how I thought about this movie the first time, because it's been a long time.
Right.
I really love anytime Willie Garson has hair, because he's been bald for a long time, and he knows
he looks
that it's
weird
funny,
with hair every time. Yeah,
but he knows that it's a strong suit to use wigs for comedy. He knows that. He does it in White Collar every once in a while, and he is my favorite part of White Collar. Did you ever watch that show?
No, I don't think I have. No.
Phenomenal. Matthew Bomer and Willie Garson just chewing the scenery up for 5 seasons. Phenomenal.
Okay.
Messing with Warren. Oh, God. Okay, so W. Earl Brown, when he took on the role of Warren, so what he said is he started the movie, like, he started the character study off with Warren's walk, and then the character developed from there.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought was funny is W. Earl Brown caught a lot of heat for playing Warren.
Oh, I imagine so, yeah.
And then in Tropic Thunder, Robert Downey Jr.'s advice to Ben Stiller.
Right, exactly. Yep.
You never go full retard. Forrest Gump, more hero, autistic maybe. That man was a goddamn more.
Like, no, dude, like, yeah, like, you never go full. And something just kind of was eating at me through the movie as I was, like, when I learned that and I researched that. It's like, I wonder if that's why that line made it into Tropic Thunder.
I mean, it makes sense, especially when you draw the Ben Stiller connection between the two. Yeah. It kind of makes sense, you know?
Yeah, like, because that way, it wasn't him doing it. It wasn't his decision, but however, he still was part of that movie.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, what might have been the biggest laugh for me, especially early movie, some of my best friends don't know my name.
Right, yeah.
I hate how relatable that is, man. That I'm judging myself, like my 15, 16-year-old self, so hard for being like, oh no.
Yep.
I was that, like, I wasn't fully that guy, but there were definitely circles around me that I, like, really looked up to people and all that, and I highly doubt that they ever even knew who
Oh,
I was.
it literally happened to me one time. A friend of mine when I was in high school and I was on the school newspaper, and a friend of mine walked into the lab and saw what I was writing, and it had my byline at the top by Jonathan Ems, and he looked at that and goes, "Who the fuck is Jonathan Ems?" And I go,
Is it because
me.
of Doc? Is it because of
Yeah,
Doc?
he literally looks at me and goes, "I thought your name was Doc." Yeah, I'm like,
So W. Earl Brown as Warren searching for his baseball and then coming across just unbelievable freaking tools,
Right.
and tell him that, hey, that woman over there, she has your baseball, but she doesn't call it a baseball. She calls it a wiener.
yeah, oh boy. Classic bullying.
Yeah, that is honestly, that's some pretty classic stuff, and
Yeah.
it sucks. The piggyback rides and the first clue to his... Oh, right, yeah. So as they're going away after Mary's like, yeah, thanks, Ted. She knows my name. Some
Right.
of my best friends don't even know my name. Like that line is never going to not just absolutely destroy me every time I hear it. But then Warren jumping on Ted's back for the piggyback ride, that actually paid off very, very, very shortly after, because he's talking about, I have this disc thing, and then he's helping his boss move. Never mentioned again. They paid that off within like 5 minutes of that bringing up, and it never happens
I
again. So-
remember thinking that was like like they wanted to like do the trail of how he found out that Healy was lying, and so it's like he went to go see his friend the chiropractor. Why did he have to go see the chiropractor? Well, he was lifting some heavy shit. Why was he lifting some heavy shit? Fuck it. He was helping a guy move that he doesn't even know or like
Every
whatever.
single step of the movie completely made sense. Like, they really locked it in, and I really enjoyed that. Then Mary asked Ted about prom.
Which, by the way, I forgot to check. The guy in the wheelchair that he was helping move, was that Christopher Titus?
No, that wasn't.
Okay.
That is, I think his name was Dan Murphy, but he actually has been in a wheelchair for a very long time.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, no, that wasn't. Yeah. So when Mary asks for prom, Ted thinks like, "Oh, you need a designated driver," because his brain cannot it just doesn't function in the fact to
Right.
think that.
There is no possible way she actually likes me. No, she's being too nice.
But
there's
then
something-
again, who hasn't been in that situation where it's like, okay, something too good is happening, but just in case it's like my dreams or my hopes or something like that, maybe
Right.
like just I'm gonna check. Like, you need a woman asks you out like that, like, are you asking if I'm free so you need a babysitter so you can go out with somebody else?
Right. Yep.
Wait,
Yeah.
you actually want to go out with? Why?
Yep.
Like, that,
Yep.
Like,
Had that conversation many times.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, so that was very relatable. I really enjoyed that. I love that. From that moment on, all of my friends saw me in an entirely new way. You're a fucking liar.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
I loved that so much. Willie Garson, just everything he said absolutely was hilarious. But
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He was great.
then
For such a small role, he killed every scene that he was in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so Ben Stiller as Ted going up to pick Mary up for the prom, and then Keith David showing up to the door. And then I just like that moment where he stops. He's like, to check the address and make sure.
Yeah.
Apparently, like, Keith David improv'd basically everything.
You know what? That does not surprise me at all.
They just,
Honestly.
like the Farrelly brothers, they cast Keith David, and they were like, just
Yeah. Just be
you.
Keith David. That's
yeah.
all we want.
And, like, honestly, that's one of the most, he is one of the more memorable characters of the entire movie.
Yeah.
Which
truly.
is saying a lot for a movie with this many very memorable characters.
Yeah.
So you have the classic girl walking down the stairs scene, very 80s, 90s, whatever. Million times. Just put any Cyndi Lauper song to a person walking down the stairs and it works.
Right.
And so what's weird is on the IMDb, they said that this was a goof or a movie mix-up or something like that. But Warren was messing with the Rubik's Cube and he solved it twice in the scene. Now, they were saying that it was a movie mix-up, but I was like, that was not taken by me as a movie mix-up. That took it by me as Warren can't communicate, but he's crazy smart.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so whoever put that up on the IMDb, I think that they were just wrong, and nobody went to go correct that, because I'm pretty sure that's what they were saying about Warren. Okay, so yeah, touching Warren's ears, big no-no, and this is something that is set up very, very early on, and it's paid off way later.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Stiller as Ted gets attacked nonstop throughout this movie. And every time he does anything back, everybody's like, "What are you doing? Stop that! Stop that!"
Mm-hmm.
Except Mary. Mary is the only person that is ever actually on Ted's side and worried about Ted when anything is going on.
That's true.
And I'll actually...
Well, I think that just kind of goes to show just how much of a, like, it goes to Mary's character, how much of a genuinely nice person she is, because she doesn't really lay blame. She's trying to get Warren to calm down. She's not blaming Ted. She sees this as the just unfortunate situation that it is. Mm-hmm. No one is a bad guy here, and that is her character. She is genuinely seeing the good in everyone at all times, to her own downfall, we see.
Yeah, Cameron Diaz as Mary. I mean, Mary is basically... It's kind of... Okay, this is going to be a little fucked up to say. Well, not fucked up to say. It's actually kind of nice, but a little... Whatever.
Right.
She's basically the perfect woman.
Right. No, yeah. Well, she's like right off the heels of The Mask when she does this, right? And so she basically
I'm not talking
is...
physically. I'm talking... I mean, yes. I mean, Cameron Diaz... Jesus. Oh, my God. But
yeah, she was like America's sweetheart at this time.
She helps out mentally ill people. She is a jock. She's fit. She's intelligent. She's ditzy to the point where it's disarming. And Cameron Diaz pretty much was playing Cameron Diaz, which is like why Cameron Diaz is...
I'm sure they're like, in no small part, I'm sure the reason why she agreed to do this movie was probably because she very, very heavily identified with Mary and everything that she goes through in this movie.
But also, when the Farrelly brothers reach out to do something after they did Dumb and Dumber, after they did, I mean...
Oh, well, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got Ben Stiller is probably at a peak at this point too, because this is after Flirting with Disaster and all that.
But also, Cameron Diaz is somewhat of a newer performer, and Matt Dillon was one of the stars of The Outsiders, which was a huge movie when Cameron Diaz was a teenager. So you have to imagine maybe she also really wanted to work with Matt Dillon too.
Probably true, yeah.
I mean, especially because, I mean, and this is Matt Dillon at his goofiest.
Yeah,
but also Matt Dillon. I think it's still comedy.
Is his first comedy? I think it's like the most goofy role. I think he hasn't done a lot of comedy since, to my memory anyway.
Oh, he said like this was his first comedy, and he said this was the hardest that he ever the hardest role that he ever did, because he didn't understand the timing of comedy. Like, he's a good actor, but comedy is all about timing.
Yeah,
and luckily, he got his first comedic role opposite of Ben Stiller, Cameron Diaz, who is naturally hilarious, Lynn Shaye, who is unbelievably hilarious, Jeffrey Tambor, who he is a very good actor, but also it doesn't take him much effort to make everybody laugh.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, he just has it.
And Lee, what's his name? Lee Evans. Lee Evans, yeah, he's an established British comedian too.
Very much so. Which, by the way, what an incredible capability to put on such a terrible British accent when you are British.
Yeah, like that. Like,
because honestly, me or you, how would we do a bad American accent?
I mean, I don't know.
How do you do a fake American accent to make it obvious enough that it's fake?
That is a good question.
Yeah,
I'd probably pick some celebrity and just try to sound exactly like them. Like, I would probably try to do like a fucking Robert Downey Jr. I'd probably try to do a Robert Downey Jr. impersonation. That's how I would do my bad American accent.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
Yep.
I can't. RDJ doesn't have a distinct enough voice for me to even try to impersonate. At least
I get that. I'm not saying it would be easy. I'm not saying it would be good. Yeah, but that's probably I would probably go somewhere along those lines. But that's kind of one of those things like with Lee too, because I had seen Lee before in this movie called Funny Bones, which is a British comedy movie, and so the reveal on him later, where he puts on his Floridian Western American accent, totally changing. Like that was the biggest shocker for me in that movie, was to find out that this dude wasn't actually British, because he was being played by a very, very British actor. So why wouldn't the character actually be British?
Yeah, no, when he switched that over, and he has that Bill Paxton-ish moment.
I love her, man. Like, oh my God. Yeah. No, that was probably the biggest stroke of genius in the whole movie. Like, oh my God.
His delivery on that, like, oh God, there's so many iconic lines in this movie. Like, and here's the first one, really. When the birds are like, why do birds? And Ben Stiller's peeing, and he's looking out the window, and then all of a sudden, cut to Cameron Diaz in a bra, and that huge mishap, and just Warren on the outside shouting Franks and beans, and oh my God, the mother, or Keith David, just can't stop laughing as he goes through there. Everything about that, just, how did you get that on top of that? Everything. I don't know how to talk about that scene, because
it's one of those, it has to be seen to believe. You can't describe it. It was an iconic film moment that cannot be explained, can only be experienced.
And it can be done so many times, so many ways, so wrong, where it doesn't work. This worked perfectly. But the Farrelly brothers went on to say, this is a true story. This happened to one of their friends, and their parents told them like 13, 15 years after it happened, because they didn't want that, after high school, after everything, because they didn't want this story to follow their kid. So they kept it a secret until they told the Farrelly brothers, and then the brothers were like, oh my God, this has to go win something.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So apparently what happened to Ted in There's Something About Mary actually happened to one of the Farrelly brothers' buddies.
I'm not surprised. Art imitates life and vice versa. That's not a surprise. I probably should have guessed that.
I feel real bad for whoever that happened to out in the world, because that's
not only did they have to experience that, but also now it is written in movie history.
But you got to imagine that they gave approval for that. I mean, this was the Farrelly brothers' buddy. Like, you get.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
I hope so. That's what I'm going to say. I'm just going to say I hope so. But through this scene,
if you're out there, we feel for you, sir.
Very much so. Very much so. First the dad, then the mom coming in, who the dental is like, she's a dental hygienist. She'll know what to do. And then she comes in. All she wants to do is spray it with Bactine.
Right, yeah.
Which we all know moms like that. Like, that's like, just get the hydrogen peroxide, get the Bactine, that's it.
Markie Post's character, was she improvising too? Because she was weirdly like somehow both like zany hilarious with the whole like.
It kind of felt like an SNL skit that they were trying not to break.
Right, yeah, but also at the same time very like down to earth. Like she was playing the quintessential like dates mom, again with the whole like, what's, I think he's in there masturbating and all the suspicions and the Bactine and all that, while also at the same time not at all coming off as crazy in the least.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like, it was very believable, a very real, believable situation that I could actually see having happened, because it did happen, just not prom and everything like that.
Right.
But I mean, oh my God. And just so first the dad, Keith David, then Markie Post, then the cop, and finally the firefighter that comes in. It's like, look, you've already done the hard part.
The cop just showing up at the bathroom window, that was some Looney Tunes bullshit, but somehow still worked. Like,
it didn't matter, because the scene was so crazy. Just like, at that point, it's like, you know what? Why not?
Yeah.
And then just the whole, you already laid the tracks. we're just gonna back it up. And I'm just like, and every man in the world, when we see that scene, we're all just like, no.
I was like, no,
The
don't do
shoulders
it.
are going up. They're getting closer together. We're getting man cleavage because we're just trying to hide everything. No, it's not okay. And oof. But then we got a bleeder. And Warren in the back. He was masturbating.
Yep.
When they dropped the gurney, that was not intentional.
Oh, because it was so funny.
Yeah, they actually dropped Ben Stiller. The Farrelly brothers called cut. They checked in on him, and then they just kicked the camera back on and had it go again. Can you imagine being the extras who dropped Ben Stiller?
Oh man, yeah.
Just imagine how
that would haunt me for the rest of my life. Absolutely, yeah. I would never be able to sleep again. I'd just be staring at the ceiling, going like, "That's
no, you don't get it, man. I was in a movie. I was with Ben Stiller and Cameron Diaz. She was right there. Well, what'd you do? I was in the background.
Yeah.
I dropped.
Would I see if I watched the movie? Would I see yeah.
My hand, maybe. Oh man.
Well, and that's the thing. That's like an interesting like juxtapose too. Like that like kind of plays into between like the whole scene with the zipper and the getting dropped together. That is a weirdly like running theme of like luck. Like there's even a comment from Chris Elliott's character where he goes, "Damn, you are lucky." And when you put it out there, it's like, yeah, he is lucky because of
Chris Elliott.
What?
Chris Elliott. Like I'm pretty sure. Remember we were talking about that actor that I was up against for that role?
Oh yeah.
I think like when you said like when you like I don't know, like that just pulled it out. I'm gonna check real quick. I'm sorry, keep going.
Okay. But it is, there is a lot to do with this guy's luck where it's like, yeah, he's really lucky because he had a serial killer in his car and didn't get killed. But also he's super unlucky because he keeps getting he gets his dick caught in a zipper. He gets dropped. The gurney gets dropped. He gets hooked by a fish hook. He gets, trips over a dude at the truck stop and gets arrested for gay flagrancy or whatever it was they were all getting arrested for.
Which also a true story. The reason they included that in there is because one of the highway like state troopers, like that, like high up officials, got caught and mixed up with a highway gay orgy. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Now we got the
which
therapy.
Actually, I do want to jump back on that real quick because again, talking theme wise and the mentality of the '90s when because that's another thing. I don't know if you've heard this meme popping around, but the running gag is basically men would rather blank than go to therapy. Men would rather snap their fingers and destroy half the universe than go to therapy. Things like that. Like that's basically this running gag I'm seeing. Like you take a look at a movie like There's Something About Mary, you can see a very accurate depiction of why, because this movie starts out with Ben Stiller in therapy, talking about the very thing that we all should be in therapy for. The fact that no one is ever nice to us. One person is nice to us one time in our life and we're obsessed about her for forever. He's in therapy for that, doing what he's supposed to do. And the therapist is ignoring him, sitting there going like,
which,
oh,
real quick,
God,
the therapist played by Richard Jenkins, which another like effortlessly hilarious.
Right, exactly. I mean, it is funny as hell. But then like immediately he's like, oh yeah, and then like I got a panic attack and I pulled over a rest stop and he's like, oh, rest stop, huh? Where all the gay people hang out. We'll talk about this next time.
Yeah. A hotbed of sexual activity for many,
right, yeah.
many homosexuals. Like what the
like that is, I mean, that's a lampooned extreme example, but that, in the 90s, that was how therapy was viewed. And so it's like, yes, this for all the ups and downs and faults and possible offenses one might take from this movie, it is an accurate look at the male psyche. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, we suck.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
Hours of content. You're welcome.
That's what we're going for. All right. So here's the thing about Woogie. After the therapy session, so the audience doesn't technically know that this is Woogie yet, but we're sitting there with Ben Stiller as Ted and Dom Woganowski, and Woogie, he's got a pretty wife, he's got kids that are not running up on his face, kicking him in the nuts. When you show a guy
they're in
who's
the background playing friendly as children should.
Yeah.
Like he is
usually
living
when you
the
show
dream.
a guy
Yeah.
that is like oh, you have this perfect life, you usually show like what it actually is representative of being a dad. Like you got a toddler kicking you in the nuts for fun every 5 minutes, like
Right.
because that's what it's like to be a babysitter with my nephew, man. Like,
Oh, when I was a kid, when I reached the height where I was at forehead height to my father's solar plexus, I would, on a regular basis, multiple times a day, go like I'm going to give my dad a hug, and then I'd headbutt him in the solar plexus instead.
What
I
a
knocked
dick.
I knocked the wind out of my father on a regular basis. That is, yeah.
what a dick.
That's what parenthood is.
A parent. Good God. Yeah, my nephew is like my brother-in-law is pretty tall. My nephew's pretty short, so. Oh damn it, Doc! Did you freeze again? Doc froze again. All right. So yeah, like we were saying, so Woogie has this nice situation, a beautiful wife that love like cooking, like making cookies for him, stuff like that. Like the kind of person who likes doing stuff for you. Like I like doing stuff for my wife. She likes doing stuff for me. It's nice.
Yeah.
This dude has no appreciation for that.
Yeah. He has a perfect dream situation, and he seems to not at all care at all.
Yeah.
And then,
to sit
and then
there
later
and
and
be
then,
like, I want cookies, and then
Yeah.
your wife just goes and makes you cookies. That's nice.
yeah.
And to have no appreciation for that, yeah, you don't really deserve anything.
Yep.
Sorry, man. You got somebody who lives in your house and just like, yeah, that's not, yeah.
And it escalates too. It goes further, you know. Later on in the movie,
the
right in
playing cops, like all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah. No, like this dude just sucks. But Woogie now has a damn good life, and yet setting up Ted to be the fall guy from the get-go and alludes to Neely. Woogie has been planning this out from the he became friends with Ted so he could get Ted to do this. Like this is a very
This was an elaborate plan that he spent years on. Yeah.
Also, and then the introduction to Healy, Matt Dillon. Damn, Matt Dillon doing comedy coming in, and his very first comedic role. I'm not gonna say he killed it, but he did good.
He did pretty good, yes. And now that you mentioned, the interesting thing is that now that you mentioned that he was saying timing was difficult, like now that you said it, I'm thinking back on it and going like, oh, that kind of was apparent. He did kind of draw things out, things that would have been funnier and hit harder if he was a little bit quicker, but he was kind of slow and thoughtful, like a dramatic actor in it, and it didn't ruin things because it was still a really good performance and still a really good character.
There's a very particular line that a perfect example of what you're saying. I'm pretty sure Budweiser sponsored this film or something like that, because not one time was Budweiser referenced at all verbally, but like he goes down, he wants a whiskey sour. They bring him a Budweiser, and he just turns around and goes, "Hey, the way that he was about to complain about it was actually a dramatic portrayal of complaining about it instead of comedic."
Right.
So perfect example of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like he dropped out, and it almost seemed like he dropped out of character to say that line, and he was saying it as Matt Dillon.
Right.
That's how jarring that was.
Yeah.
So yeah, that timing is very, very important.
But again, that's the thing. It didn't ruin it. It just, now in hindsight, I'm going, oh yeah, that was there. I can see it now. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm gonna jump ahead to the end on this because there's something about Mary is a must see. It's a must watch.
Now
This is the comedy of the era. This was the era's comedy done damn near to perfection.
It pretty much was, yeah. I mean, I got to admit that in this like later on watching, um,
Some problems.
yeah,
Jeffrey Tambor popping in and stealing every scene that he's in. That is just
Yep.
a power that Jeffrey Tambor has. And I'm gonna be honest, when I was a kid, I didn't know who Jeffrey Tambor was. I thought that was Dr. Phil.
that would have been awesome.
Introducing Matt Dillon as Healy, and just absolutely as cynical as he could possibly be. Does not believe that this character is in love and just curious about any of this. But also, let's just be real clear about this. Ted was not a good character. You don't hire a private eye to go
No.
find out about X. Like, none of this is okay behavior. Before Facebook, this is what the creeps did. Like, Ted's a creep. Like, but this is what this movie is. This movie is not. None of these characters are meant to be taken seriously or anything like that. This is an
Absolutely.
over-the-top comedy. Introducing adult Mary and Magda, played by Lynn Shaye. And Magda is a mega Karen who is just currently not engaged in Karening. Like, that's it. This is like, she just hasn't seen a family out at the park. That, like, this is just her. This is a Karen before leaving the house.
What I was saying is that she is kind of Karen because she's eavesdropping on all of her neighbors with a police scanner that's picking up all their cell phone conversations. So, and judging them all and spreading the rumors about them. So she's still Karening. She's just Karening light at this moment. She's casually Karening by drinking in the morning and invading all of her neighbors' privacy.
Yes. Then we cut to a montage of getting an understanding of how outstanding of an example of a human being Mary is, and that she is just far more than how beautiful she is. She is a complete package of decency and humanity and care, and just phenomenal. Brunch with Sarah Silverman, Candy, and Alexander. And so obviously we all know who Sarah Silverman is. A lot of people are going to know who Candy Alexander is. Nobody is going to know who Marnie Alexenberg is. This was her first credit, and she just didn't go very far. So at that brunch, you have Cameron Diaz, Sarah Silverman, Candy Alexander, three people who had very big careers after this. Feel kind of bad for Marnie.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened there, but honestly, when you actually you do know what happened there, because when you go back and you watch that, there's I'm guessing she was a little bit of a pest on set, and I feel bad. But there's a moment where like all Candy, Sarah, and her.
Where do you get that from?
Right here. There's a moment where Candy, Sarah, and Marnie are in the background, and Marnie, like, they're really excited for what's happening for Cameron Diaz, and then Marnie like grabs Sarah Silverman's arm, and then Sarah Silverman slaps the shit out of her, like, get off me. Like, it's in that scene, and you see, like, there is some fire in Sarah, but there's always fire in Sarah Silverman, so you don't really know whether that's a decision or not. But
yeah, you never know if that's a character or if she actually has that.
Yeah. I gotta say, them at the brunch though, when they're talking about what we come to find out is Brett Favre, and I like that Candy Alexander calls him Pac-Man. You get that, right? Okay, you do. Okay, there's a big leg.
I do now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a big leg, so I wasn't sure. Okay, and I like that line. To hell with Brett. I've got a vibrator. And then Matt Dillon. Where he starts just chuckling and then he shuts the chuckle down really fast. That, again, that is a scene that lives
But they still catch him.
free. Yes. But that scene, him laughing and then hiding that, shutting it down, that scene lives rent-free in my mind, and it has ever since I saw it. It is such a perfect scene. Healy with the super creepy behavior, with the binoculars, looking in. And like Mary's changing, so he switches to the little ones out for the mega big ones and comes back to see Magda. And ooh, yeah, that's karma.
Right, yeah.
That's karma. But then again, I mean, Matt Dillon comes in with a like perfectly. We're talking about timing. He comes in with a perfectly timed line where it's like, "Huh, first chink in the armor, Ted." Like, and then it cuts from there to him giving the false report to Ted, which just to sum up the false report, Healy goes back to Ted and says that Mary's an overweight paraplegic with 4 kids from 3 men, gambling addict, who is currently in Japan as a mail order bride.
Right.
He really weaved a story on that one.
To sum up, everyone else, they have a story about how they met Mary and she was nice to them and now they can't stop thinking about her. He's the only one who doesn't.
Yeah, no, he's just like he's just feeding off of everybody else's. But I do like this does say something to Ted's character. Ted still tries to do the good guy thing. He's like, dude, she's in a wheelchair. Like, maybe I could reach out to her. Maybe I could give her some help. Like, Ted finds out that she is not the mega babe who's super kind, all this stuff, all that. He finds out that she is an overweight person with a gaggle of kids and all stuff, and he still wants to help. So that does say there is more to his attraction to Mary than just the physicality. So I thought that was a nice little inclusion there. But again, Healy wouldn't let him. Woogie slips in this moment when Ted is telling him the report that Healy gave him. He's like, well, I mean, come on, man. You feel liberated. I feel liberated. Like, I thought that was Woogie actually being like, wow, man, I really dodged a bullet. I was obsessed with her, but like, he's like, I feel liberated. So that was a good little line. And again, like one of those things, second watch. The second watch is good.
But interestingly enough, it seems like he doesn't because, or actually, no, I guess that still works because I'm thinking like later on when Ted comes back and tells Woogie, oh no, it turns out it was a lie. I just found out she's actually still a babe. At that point, he's starting to get the hives. So that means this whole time he's still been obsessing about Mary. So even though he comes back with oh, it turns out that she's overweight and a gambling addict and all these kids, it didn't actually liberate him. And so the question becomes, was it kind of a reversal? Like, here's the question. Was Woogie intentionally trying to set them up as...
Well, because, like, what I thought, like...
Go ahead.
He had Healy actually going and investigating and stuff like that, so I just figured that started the snowball. And it would take longer than, whatever, a day for those things to shake off. But, I mean... Definitely. I mean, because we find out Woogie was playing the longest con. Like, he really was.
That's true,
Then, when Mary's talking about how Healy looks, she's like, yeah, he's no Steve Young, setting up the end because she's a 49ers fan, and even though Brett Favre is Brett Favre, he doesn't play for the Niners, so it doesn't work for her, which, damn. Good God.
Which I gotta say, I do appreciate as myself, a non-sports fan. As a non-sports fan and Ben Stiller also basically playing the non-sports fan, how even after all that, he doesn't know how to pronounce Brett Favre's name. I appreciated that. I felt represented there.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I imagine a lot of people did. But Ben Stiller did that line so well that a bunch of people actually believe that he didn't know how to spell or say Brett Favre's name, even though Ben Stiller is an avid jock. Like, he is a sports guy, and he did the line so well. People are like, God, you don't even know how to say his name. And then Ben's like, I was acting. Which
Damn.
Did you not see the movie that I was just in?
Yeah, it's like you saw me say that in a movie theater, probably, right? Or you had to put something in a VCR, or I was acting, I was performing. Somebody, yeah, whatever. Or Puffy, can't remember the name, growling through the door at Healy and Puffer, and then Healy drugging the dog, and then talking about the whole thing like, they called me Kenton T, who is man who is lover of many animal, who is in return loved in kind, or whatever. And then Lin Shaye getting up like, we'll be right back. Kenton T. Lin Shaye is too funny, man. She is too funny.
She was good. Yeah, she was perfect in that character as well. Yes.
Yeah, and
as
then,
everyone else in the movie is.
Really? And then so again, potentially sponsored by Budweiser, because Mary grabs a Bud Light, and then you hear Matt Dillon, "Stay away from the light." Okay. And then he asks them to make him a bundt cake, and then Magda comes back in with a thing of Oreos with an orange next to it, or a flower or something. Which, just that, like, there was no reason to do that, but it was just a very good inclusion to have that.
I feel like that was probably another improv moment where they're like, okay, we've got this whole scene where he's trying to resuscitate the dog. You two be busy in the kitchen, just do whatever, improv. And so that's where they're doing the whole, like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And so I think that was an improv scene that just sort of went on and finally joined the next scene, is my guess.
I could see that. Then we get our intro to this movie into Lee Evans playing Tucker with that horrendous British accent, which we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
That is a British man doing a terrible British accent. How any American, how can you possibly just think about this? Be an American doing a fake American accent poorly. I cannot. Nothing in my brain is telling me what that would sound like.
Yeah, I can't even imagine it. Yeah.
Yeah. So to be able to do that, wow! I'm giving Lee Evans some crazy credit, because I don't know how he did that.
I think Lee Evans is probably one of the more underappreciated talents in this movie, because while yes, everyone was perfect, he was like an unknown. He had been in one movie before this, like I said, that I had seen him in. I can't for the life of me remember what I've seen him in since. He strikes me as a very, very underrated talent. Hasn't done enough. Hasn't been appreciated enough. Stole the show in this one.
Yeah, like he does. He steals every scene that he's in. So much so to the point.
And he was.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there. Yeah, but Harland Williams in the highway scene, where he's playing like you heard of this thing of 8-minute abs? Yep. Well, 7-minute abs.
I remember seeing that, being like so excited, because I think I had just discovered Harland Williams as a stand-up comic like just before this movie came out, and so I was so delighted to see him in the movie, but I never really saw him in anything after that. I really thought he was going to be doing more.
I think I saw Rocket Man right before I saw There's Something About Mary, and I don't know how funny Rocket Man would be now that I'm an adult, but as a kid, I was dead. I was like gut busting laughter, like laughing so hard I was in pain. I remember laughing that hard at Rocket Man, and yeah, I don't remember. I don't know much of what Harland Williams has been up to. But I should I'll look into that and see what he's got going. Okay, so the carnival scene and the Harold and Maude manipulation. That's about all you really need to say there, is that he's spying on her, hears that her favorite movie is Harold and Maude, and then just
Neely being creepy.
Which, on a complete side note, I would, of all the ways in which they were trying to paint Mary as the perfect character, as the perfect woman, it's like she's a girl, but she loves sports. What guy wouldn't want that? She's, for me, for her to say her favorite love story is Harold and Maude, that's a massive red flag for me.
The interrogation after Ted gets arrested, because we talked a little bit about the highway scene where Harland Williams is playing the serial killer hugging the body. By the way, guess who's in that bag? The body bag. Guess who's in there?
There's actually someone in the bag.
It's Cameron Diaz.
I have no idea.
It's Cameron Diaz.
Really?
Cameron Diaz on an interview.
She's in the body bag during that scene.
She is. On an interview, she talked about how she did that, and she just decided, they just decided to do that, just randomly. The guy didn't even have he didn't have a body. He was just a hitchhiker. They just decided to do that, and Cameron Diaz was just hanging out in the duffel bag in Harland Williams' arms.
Wow.
And it's a great moment for the scene. It really, it worked. Also, another line that lives in my brain rent-free: step into my office. Why? Because you're fucking fired. I don't know why that's so damn funny to me.
Well, and it's the way he holds the same tone, that whole rant, the way he's da 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 da, it does not change no matter what's coming out of his mouth, and it just adds this whole other undertone to it. This is a man that is breaking.
I think I have an answer for why we haven't heard much from Harland Williams. I looked into a little bit about that scene, and the Farrelly brothers said that Harland Williams is impossible to direct. You put the camera on him, and you let him do whatever the hell he's going to do.
Okay.
Not everybody likes that.
Well, yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, not everybody likes that.
And if you don't already have star power, you're not going to get away with it.
There you go. Harland Williams, he was coming up. He was doing things. He was heading somewhere. You can't do that. You have to be directable. That is a thing. You have to be fluid. You have to be. But
yep.
I'm gonna look into Harland Williams a little bit, and I'm gonna see. I'll have that prepared for next week. A little bit of information on that. The interrogation, the police going in and Ted's admitting to the picking up the hitchhiker and all that, and then Richard Tyson going absolutely bananas on him.
Again, with the casting, the two most quintessential TV cop looking guys that they could find in the world. Just they've done an oil painting of perfect cophood on these two guys. But the main
thing that I know Richard Tyson from is Kindergarten Cop. Richard Tyson in Kindergarten Cop.
Who was he in Kindergarten Cop?
He was the main bad guy with the black hair and the long ponytail.
Oh, I did not recognize him.
That is that's where I know Richard Tyson.
No, I did not clue into that at all.
But that's the thing. When he's going through and Ted's admitting to all this, Ben Stiller's yeah, I did it. Where I come from, it's not a big deal. I know we're in the Bible Belt and all this. And then Richard Tyson is you sick freak. You're gonna fry. And then he grabs him, bam, bam. And the other cop, this is what I was alluding to about Cameron Diaz later on. The other cop is hey, take it easy, take it easy, take it easy. And he looks at him and then he looks back to the cop who's been beating his ass. He's are you okay? And then he looks back to Ben Stiller he was just assaulting the crap out of him. That's how everybody treated Ben Stiller the entire movie. Ben Stiller kept getting his ass kicked and everybody kept blaming him. Except Cameron Diaz, and because that wasn't anything they really showed a lot of light to. It's just something that was in the movie, and I thought it was really good. Then we get Tucker informing on Healy.
Right, yeah.
Crap, man, another one of those lines that lives rent free in my brain. But Yes, when like Tucker is in there and he's got the tonsil, tongue depressant. He's got the tongue depressant sticking out of his lips
Oh, right.
and talking about
Well-
having teeth capped. Yeah, that whole thing. But the scene where he's like, I don't think Healy is the man you think he is. And then you have Matt Dillon, and he's got the newspaper, and he just drops down and he turns around to the camera and is like, fuck! Like, that...
Right.
Why is that so good? Why was that delivery so good? I don't know, but it just sits with me.
Yeah, it's weird. It just somehow came out perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Woogie comes in to save the day all the way to Mary. And then you get Warren shouting Frankenbeans as soon as he sees Ted. Then
Right.
Healy using the information about having Magda like the scanner and all that to not Dr. Phil but Jeffrey Tambor. Dude, seriously, I seriously thought that was Dr. Phil when I was a kid. I don't know why, but there's an entire.
If only Dr. Phil was that funny.
Yeah, that would have been much better. There was an entire cut sequence which when I went to watch this, I was looking forward to seeing this, but it's not in this because it's in the extended cut. Jeffrey Tambor has an entire storyline in the extended cut. Have you seen it?
I actually saw this because when I sat down to watch this, I decided to get the extended cut because I had never seen that before. Of all the times I watched the movie before, I was like, "Oh, extended
Jeffrey
cut. Let's see what that's
Tambor's
about."
like
So that's
being
the one that I
clean.
saw this time around.
Yeah. So Jeffrey Tambor being clean, and
And,
then Healy coming
yeah.
back into his life, and then him like going back, and then being eaten by his snake.
So,
Is that
yes.
that scene is in there, right?
That was a turn, and that scene is in there, and its setup is so amazing because he's got the snake, he's got the dog. They drop a hint about how he, because he's fallen off the wagon and is back on the nose candy. He forgets to feed the snake, and then Healy comes in and sees the snake sitting there all full, and it is everything is telling you that the snake ate the dog. And then a couple minutes later, the dog walks up, and you're like, "Oh shit!" And it was perfectly delivered. I did not see it coming. I was right there thinking that the dog got eaten by the snake until the dog showed up, and I was like, "Oh shit!" They got me on that one. I'm surprised they caught me off guard that well.
I wish I would have seen the extended cut again because it's been a very long time since I've seen that. And honestly, Jeffrey Tambor's little side story in there, it doesn't serve the story in any way, but it is great inclusion.
No. Well, and it happens so quick because him going from I've been 18 months clean to falling off the wagon and being a complete shithead, it takes like 2 scenes for it to take place. So it does feel a little off-putting right from the get-go. I could see why if they were like, we need to cut a few minutes off that would be definitely the first place to go. Even though the snake joke is gold, it's a clunky story to begin with. And yeah, I think the final cut of the movie was well served by going there to take it out.
I agree. Okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened on this episode. Earlier today, I shared the podcast on Facebook, and then people are like, "Where's the link?" And I shared it, and I was like, "Now watch." Because I'm talking about it, and I'm talking about how good things are going, and everything like that. Tonight's going to be the episode that tanks. Look what happened. My bad.
This is all your fault.
Yes. I
Not mine
it.
and all of my cheap-ass tech issues.
Nope. My bad, Doc. I jinxed us. Okay, so now we're back to the date with Cameron Diaz and Ben Stiller. And she's informing him a little bit on Woogie. Now, she doesn't say that it's Woogie. She talks about this guy I dated at Princeton and everything like that, but we find out that that's Woogie. And Tucker shows up to rat on Healy.
Got so bad
again.
she had to change her name.
Yes. Which Healy...
Again, because this is like... is like one of those things where it's like she casually drops that she had to file for a name change to get a creepy ex-boyfriend from college off of her ass. Like that's just a thing that happens. And it begs the question, ladies, how often does that happen? How many times are women just casually filing for name changes just to get an X off their ass? I feel like any number I hear is too large.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that statement is true. Like that shouldn't happen at all.
Yeah.
But I guarantee it's happening more than we realize. However, I've never met
God,
somebody who has changed their name because of that reason, or nobody that I have ever known throughout my entire life has changed their name for anything other than marriage. So
right.
I don't know. That's not something I've ever come across
I mean,
before.
fingers crossed, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
Tucker
she drops
shows
it
up to,
so casually that
Yeah.
it's alarming.
Yeah. And Tucker shows up to rat on Healy again in epic fashion. And did you notice, like when he's telling her the story, did you notice who he was actually talking about? That was Ted Bundy. He was saying Ted Bundy's story. He just printed off Ted Bundy's story and he was saying it was Healy's.
Did not notice that. No, but that's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. That's that's top-notch saboteur work right there.
And it would not work if the character was not mega ditzy. But that is the one thing.
Right.
But that is the thing that endears the audience to Cameron Diaz. It doesn't deter from it. Like she plays ditz well.
Well, is she ditzy or like that's the question? Because I mean, she's clearly not dumb. She's a freaking surgeon. We find out, so she's clearly not an idiot.
She
But
keys in on Healy in certain ways, but he did do pretty solid.
I think it comes down to, again, she's the kind of person who is a genuinely good person, sees the genuinely good in others, and so until otherwise informed, assumes the best of everyone. Like she is just us. Even though Healy's character is telling obvious lies, she believes them all because why would he lie to her? They just met. He's a total stranger. What reason would he have to lie about this stuff? It isn't until Tucker shows up with this list of crimes he's committed. Why would she question that? Tucker's been a longtime friend. You know, she's not ditzy.
But
she's
there's
just
also, she talks about the fact that Healy's a schlub. He's kind of a slut, like all this. She went out with the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. She's had her pick of men. Like you have to imagine, and all of them have sucked. So you got to imagine she's probably trying some of the fringe.
Yep.
That was.
I've been someone else's fringe before. It's a good place to be.
I've had people find out that I'm their fringe, but nobody understands that I'm fringe when we go out on the first date. On to the absolute iconic scene of There's Something About Mary. He doesn't flog the dolphin before any big date. You don't clean the pipes, you're going out with a loaded gun. That's how people get hurt. Now, I don't know if every guy does that before a big date. I'm not going to say that I haven't done that before a big date, but I don't.
I know a lot of guys who started doing it after that movie came out.
Yeah, because what Chris Elliott said in that is something that, yes, my friend said to me when I was a teenager. Yeah, there's no baby batter in the brain. That is a line that got taken and got wildly assigned across the entire board, and
that was a culture shifting moment right there.
Yeah. But then
it was it was that and do you take the red pill? Those were like the two most iconic moments in the 90s cinema history.
Okay, so Lee Evans getting attacked by Healy, and we get to see Lee Evans' version of, or this version of an American accent, and just, oh my God. Just
Right, yeah.
Healy is
A
just beating the
Floridian
crap out of
American
all
accent.
that. Yes, and then just how he goes that, like, I love her, man. I love Mary.
Yep.
Dude, that was so...
All dude and man and whoa, like
But what I gotta say about
where
that
did he
is,
come up with, like, you want to say where did he come up with a fake, how does a British man do a fake British accent? Where did he even come up with that character that he transformed into?
dude,
That
he was Bill Paxton. His voice.
Oh, right, okay, you're like right.
It
Yeah.
has to be.
Yeah.
Like when you
He was doing
mentioned
Bill
that,
Paxton.
when you mentioned that, I think that pretty much was him playing like a goofy Bill Paxton. Or Bill Paxton.
You know, I think you're right. Yep.
The infamous hair gel scene. Oh, like the cringe on that, it still got to me. But just like, is that hair gel? And then he's like, oh, you don't have to. And then just,
Yeah.
it's such a small scene. It's such a small thing, but it's so funny. It's so hilarious. It runs so much, and it ran a decade of comedy.
It really did. It really truly did. Yeah.
It just, oh my God. Okay. I just liked writing this sentence. The stalker stalking the stalker and stalking the pup with speed. Or stalking the pup up with speed.
Yeah. Yep.
I just liked writing that sentence down. The montage of compatibility. Like, just seeing Ted and Mary going about, having dates, having fun. Ted screwing up nonstop and all of this, but it's still working because Mary just was wildly accepting of all of it. But, and this is something that kind of like, they never alluded to this. They never talked, they never brought it up, but this is what it would be like for me if I was Mary. If I liked someone and they kept getting injured every single time they were around me, I wouldn't think it's a problem with them. I would think, what the fuck am I doing to this person?
No, yeah.
So Ted gets he gets beat up, then Warren beats him up, or then he gets his back hurt, then Warren beats him up, then he gets his junk stuck in a zipper, then the whole thing with the ambulance, then we go all the way up to this montage. He gets the hook stuck in his face. Warren Warren gets hit in the face with a baseball, and you just see that moment from like Teddy's in the background. He's like, oh, fuck. And I like that he had that because he's like, dude, how am I messing everything up? And it wasn't about Warren, it was about him, which doesn't make him a great character, but it makes him a real character because if that happened, that's what would happen. You'd be like, fuck.
Yeah.
So great job there. Mary finding out. When Mary gets the letter and finds out about Ted and about Healy and about all of this stuff, her reaction was great. Like, she had that and all that, and she didn't want to hear his side. She didn't want to hear that. She's like, you need to leave. Like, I liked that she actually kicked him out there, and then he stopped and he said that, and it's like, sorry, dude, that still doesn't work. Like, you don't, like, that's still, this is a comedy, which is why it worked.
It was a very genuine and realistic reaction and scene altogether.
Yeah,
that
was a real moment in this comedy.
It's smack dab in the moment of a comedy movie. Yeah, it was very down to earth, very realistic. Yeah,
and I thought that was pretty good. Oh my God, this is where I really want to sing my second to final giant praise for Lee Evans. When Ted tracks them down over to Jeffrey Tambor's apartment, and he walks in, and then Ted's like, well, who's this guy? Healy's like, that's Tucker, he or whatever, he's in love with Mary too. And just the level of pride that like Tucker is like, yeah, I'm another stalker, I love her too. Like the pride that he had with Healy introducing him like that was huge for me. It did not belong. It belonged in this movie, but oh my god, that was so huge. But the very
we
end,
get the absolute what's the phrase, the unearned confidence that Norm has and is full on display once he's unmasked, and we see him, how he acts in the strip club, how he acts around everyone else, the way he just casually drops off, oh yeah, I made that up, and oh yeah, he, I never said that the drugs wouldn't kill him, like just straight along the board, just blanket crazy that he is, and how well it all came off as just
like
yep,
four
that's
different
who I am.
versions
I'm Norm.
of sociopathy in like this movie, and just it worked. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Ted finding out the truth about Brett, and then Return of the Woogie. That.
Yeah.
Like I remember
the
seeing
big
it the first
reveal
time.
of
the
Woogie.
Big reveal. Did not see it coming. Completely caught me off guard the first time I saw it.
Same here. Yeah.
The
I was shocked as well.
unbelievably terrifying misdirect about the shoes.
Yeah.
Like when he's like, not until I have something to remember you by. I was like, oh, like that. Like even now, even though I knew what was coming, it still like sank right down to my gut the way that Chris Elliott delivered.
Yeah, it was a terrifying delivery. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable. But then you cut to him's got like shoes in his mouth. I was like, you owe me this, you heartless bitch. Like, just
right.
And also apparently the foot fetish, like the shoe fetish and the licking the shoes and all this stuff, 100% Chris Elliott's decision, like idea. The Farrelly brothers didn't have that at all. Like he was just supposed to show up at the end, but the shoe fetish thing, that
right.
made the character Woogie. Like that made him, like that
it
was
really did.
such a good thing. The true honesty from Ted and the okay on the ear. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, Ben Stiller, his final speech there, no, he's completely full of shit. He's lying his ass off, everything like that. And they're like, you're going to tell me you're not absolutely crazy about this girl? And then Tucker coming in, like, right over the shoulder of Mary, like, right here, to be like, man, you're the biggest stalker of all of us, man. And just... Lee Evans, and that was my final compliment to Lee Evans. That, like, when he came up and did that, just how angry and just like, man, whatever.
Yeah.
Also, just one thing, gentlemen, ladies, and non-binary pals, you never, ever tell somebody you have to decide between us. You don't. That is like that moment where like Mary has to decide which one of us she wants. That is not like the second any one of you ever does that to anybody, know that that person should immediately walk the hell away from you. The second you offer somebody an ultimatum, you are the thing that leaves. That is the only healthy thing. That is just my message to the guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Don't do that.
And it's well painted. That picture is well painted in this scene that he's saying you need to decide between one of us four psychopaths who have been haunting and tormenting you and lying to you and manipulating you
for at least
17 pick one
years.
Of us.
Or no, 15 years, like however long
at minimum
we were together. Yeah. Like this woman's life
13 years.
13 years since they broke up. It was 13 years from prom.
Oh, right,
But she was with Woogie before. So I was just guessing 15, but somewhere. Then Ben Stiller leaving and that unbelievably hard cry. Like that thing.
That was
a
amazing.
hell of a decision.
Yeah, like wow.
Way to commit all the way to the bit. And
Full ugly sobbing right out the gate. Yeah.
yes,
Kind of impressive.
Yes, fully committed to that, and I singing praises. That's pretty much it. Just singing praises.
And that's a question. Was that a Ben Stiller decision or was that a Farrelly brothers decision? Because I could kind of see that coming from both of them.
Honestly, really, you could. I mean, because the Farrelly brothers, they let people make decisions.
Yeah.
Chris Elliott coming up with the shoe fetish thing.
Right.
Like they leave room for their actors to come up with ideas. Apparently, Brett Favre saying, "I'm in town to play the Dolphins, dumbass." That was an improv line from Brett Favre.
Okay.
Like,
wow. Not bad for a jockhead. Yeah.
yeah, like no, and the Farrelly brothers were like, "Yeah, keep it in."
Yeah.
Like they knew what worked, they knew what was funny, they knew like they were good. I keep saying, all right. Well, that ends our first heavy technical issue episode. Took us one test episode and 6 live episodes before we actually wound up with something. So, you know what? That's not the worst. And set aside from that, I'm pretty sure we know what the issue is.
Yeah.
So I think we can get it. We could probably get it fixed by next week.
90% sure. Yes.
Yeah. So thanks for sticking it out with us with our wild tech issues this week. We will have them fixed next week. And but before we go, Doc, give your spiel on what is it? I Saw Her First, or I Saw Her Coming. What was the name of it?
The name of what?
The movie next week.
Oh, Don't Think Twice.
I wasn't even close.
That's why I was confused. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand the confusion. That was
Don't
not
Think
even
Twice.
kind of-
It's written by, directed by, and starring Mike Birbiglia. Not a name that anyone's going to remember unless you know who he is.
We're heading to Netflix to check out some comedy special.
Yep. But it also has Keegan-Michael Key is also in it. I'm trying to remember who. Jillian Jacobs is also in it. Kate Micucci is also in it. I'm trying to remember everybody's name here, and I'm blanking on the rest of the cast. But it is an absolute bang up comedy cast. It is a comedy movie, but it is also kind of serious. I will warn you, and I'm not. You are going to see yourself in this movie, and you are not going to like how you are portrayed. And I'm not saying you specifically,
dude,
Brad.
I live in 2024.
I'm saying
I'm used to it.
What that's what people. Yeah. This is a really, really good movie, but like I saw myself in one of the characters and I was not happy about it. And I actually talked to another writer friend of mine and she said the same thing. She said, good movie, but I felt like I got stabbed in the back.
So
if you are a creative
genders?
person of any
this
kind.
is attacking creatives.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not attacking, just offering up some very uncomfortable realities of the kinds of people that get into entertainment. So I don't know which character you're going to see yourself in, but you are going to see yourself in one of these characters, and it's going to make you very, very self-conscious. That's what happens. But really funny, really good. Highly recommends. Like I can't wait to watch it again and talk about it.
Okay, well that is definitely a good sign. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So for the coming from us this week is Requiem for a Dream. That is not an easy movie. That is going to be real rough. So
no. Well, I'll tell you this. I have not seen the movie before, so it's going to be an experience for me. You know, it's a good one that we're getting something I haven't seen before.
Okay, so
But one
Requiem
of the
for a
reasons
Dream
why I
is...
haven't seen it is
Go ahead.
one of the
What's
reasons why I haven't seen it is because I have heard people talk about it and how hard it is to watch. And there was a wide swath of my life where I just couldn't emotionally handle that kind of movie for a while, and it never happened. So
Well, let's go over a little bit of the
this
cast.
is going to be
Ellen Burstyn, Jared Leto, Jennifer Connelly, Marlon Wayans, and Christopher McDonald are your top tier, or your top build.
right. No, it's a good cast.
Yeah, it's you will enjoy it.
I've heard
it
it's a
will
good
hit.
movie. I've heard that it's very good. It's just very difficult to watch.
Yes. So that's going to close up season 1, episode 7 of Heist. Tombstone, There's Something About Mary, and a plethora of technical issues. We'll see you next week.